Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sci-Fi Chronicles, and I hope you really enjoyed the Rocky Free gym workout session introduction to this channel, which was superb. I'm joined tonight as well by two top guys. Istophobos, how you doing, my friend? You okay?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Z3PO, how you doing, mate?
I'm very good, thank you, John. Thanks for having me on again.
You're welcome. And also, we've got someone else probably turning up in the next sort of 10 to 15 minutes. So, you know, who could it be? Who could it be?
I wonder. It's a mystery. I wonder who it could be.
It's a mystery. Is it Toya? Is it Toya Wilcox?
Wilcox.
Is it Greta Thunberg?
Yeah.
Greta Thunberg.
We're going to do some fundraising for a cruise.
Oh, she didn't have to pay for that shit. She doesn't need fundraising, man.
Doesn't pay for anything, does she? The grifter.
Her whole return trip and meals were on the IDF. Figures she'd be more grateful.
And tonight, guys, so the first thing I was going to say to you, we'll jump into it. We're going to talk, first of all, about the rumoured cancellation of Doctor Who. Okay, and I've got some comments to bring up, which I'll show us any second, which is Russell T Davies in Doctor Who magazine. So first of all, this is what he said. Okay, so he said, "No, not the end. Don't be mad. Doctor Who will never end. There are pathways leading to potential futures. We've still got the mystery of that bright and blazing ending. Oh, hello. Yes, indeed. Hello, Billy. And there's Susan, of course. I wonder if we'll ever find out who the boss is or who the boss are. Brackets. I'm still wondering who Gus is from Mummy on the Orient Express. Maybe they're the same. But we don't know what's happening yet. And while everyone works that out, I'll take a pause on this page. Thanks for reading. And thanks to Doctor Who magazine. A delight to work with you on this wonderful magazine. Hopefully we'll have better news soon, and certainly the war between the land and the sea is about to break out, so there are great things ahead. Until then, it has been an absolute joy." So guys, what are your thoughts on these comments at the end of his column, stepping down from it in Doctor Who magazine? Do you think it's done? Do you think he's scampering away into the shadows now?
I think he's embarrassed. He's gone into retreat. He's hiding away from the criticism that he's been receiving. He hasn't got a bloody clue what's going to happen next. No. It's obviously not been renewed. No. And we don't know whether the BBC is going to produce it or whether they're going to lease it out again. But either way, I hope Bad Wolf, we see the last of them. Get a new showrunner in. I mean, they did plan, the BBC were planning a children's animated series. Use the Billy Doctor for that.
Yeah. I mean,
give her a series there and then start afresh.
Yeah. I mean, guys, you know, you've also had that rumor in the last week or so, haven't you, that came out that someone posted, you know, and again, I say rumor, but they also talked in this rumor, they talked about the fact that there was a large streaming partner, a large streaming company to the equivalent size of Disney. So with that's either going to be Amazon Prime or Netflix, isn't it, essentially?
Yeah.
So, and they were saying, yes. So they were saying that they wanted more creative control. They wanted to have a daily control over what was going on. And they felt that they wanted Doctor Who needs to go back to a more serious tone, because that's the only way, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, that it's going to be successful again. RTD apparently pushed back on it and said he prefers the camp tone that it's currently got. And he's also, apparently, according to that rumor, that he's very, very cautious about who he works with. Well, we know why, because they've got to think a certain way, haven't they? You know.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the problem with the last two seasons of Doctor Who. He's written it for his Twitter audience.
Yeah.
No, all his LBGT LMNP allies,
all 30 of them
are clapping their hands like seals on Twitter and telling him what a great, fantastic person he is, giving him as much affirmation as possible.
Yeah,
and he just churned out garbage that wasn't suitable for family entertainment.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, I saw the other day, people putting up posts, which this is what I don't understand. They put up a post, right, and it's got Shooty Gatwa on one side and it's got Jodie Whittaker on the other, and then they put a big heart in the middle, and then it's like a comment like, "Oh, I can't believe it, they're perfect for each other." And then I'm sat there thinking, you do realize they're the same person, right? You don't even understand your own show that you're supposedly liking. This is what I don't
Yes, but this is the problem with that particular group of people, is they try and sexualize everything.
And this is a specific group of people that, I forget the name of the pub, one day in a pub in England, they set out to specifically go on this specific mission. None of this is accident, right? They have a word. It was a group of writers, TV writers, sci-fi writers in London, that decided that they wanted their ideology to take over popular culture, and they planned it, and they had a roadmap. None of this it's not even like a gay person going crazy. This is a plan all along.
Yeah. And guys, I've got this to show you as well, right? Because I did a little bit of looking back, today, and I pulled up one of his first, Russell T Davies' first interviews with Doctor Who magazine in 2003, when they announced that Doctor Who was coming back. Okay. And I'm going to read the bottom paragraph to you. Okay. So, and he says, "And I'm convinced that Doctor Who needs supervision more than any other British drama I can think of, because it has the potential to be ruined by big collars and funny hats and comedy accents." Now, that was him in 2003, effectively talking about himself in 2025. Just the hypocrisy is off the scale, isn't it?
But what he didn't say is, it also has the potential to be completely taken over ideologically by big collars and funny hats and comedy accents. Like, it's what he doesn't say. Now, on the page you listed before, like, I didn't get past blazing. When you were reading that, that's all I could think of was blazing. But I don't think RTD scamper off. I think he catapulted out with a foot up his ass, and he is just trying to save whatever face he can. All of that stuff just reeks of desperation, just like adding Billy Piper at the last minute, just to give an opening. It's like leaving a little bit of tape in the door, and hopefully maybe you can get back in after it closes, because that was a post-credit scene. She wasn't part of the production. They brought her in, separately. You can see the green screen.
Yeah, that was like a decision he made after the Robot Revolution. So you're well into season 2. What's going on?
They could only think of one person that the fans didn't hate anymore, and that was Billy Piper. So, she's a companion, not a doctor. Now, now I could see a way they could use Billy Piper if they maybe put her in sexy lingerie and laid her down on a couch, and she answered the phone and people told them her sexy story.
Seeing her pop songs.
They never mind. They already did that. Listen, making her the doctor would just, piss more fans off. She already had her happy ending.
Yeah. And I think it was very telling when she put her statement out straight after, wasn't it? And it's saying it's nice to be coming back one more time. I'm paraphrasing there, but it was certainly along one more time. And it's like, because let's be honest, at the moment, it's career suicide for any person that decides to take it on or gets offered it at the moment, because if you're going to be given that level of writing, there's only one way it's going to go for you, and it's not going to help your acting career, is it?
No.
It's really incredible. But I've got another thing to show you as well. This is what RTD has also said as well. Okay, and this is about how he's changed Omega and how he can change things in the show. So he's put, Doctor Who's mythology is always shifting, as are the characters within it. I sort of used the Time War to tweak the legend of Omega. A lot of things said about Omega were not said in the original series. You have to accept that 40 years have passed. The Time War came along and everyone's history got changed. So that's what Omega is now. You can reinvent it. It's not defying the law, it's just adding to it. Russell reflects that this is similar to how our own history is often revisited and recontextualized over time. There was plenty of fuss made about Winston Churchill being in Doctor Who, when there's plenty of history to suggest he wasn't such a good guy. And that's always the way. Our history of slavery, our way of walking through the world is constantly being reanalyzed. So I like to think it's the same on Gallifrey. That's happened over the eons. Omega has been recontextualized and the story gets bolder and changes over time. We don't want to repeat the past. We want to push it forward. And after the devastating events during the final 20 minutes of the reality war, there's plenty of scope to push Doctor Who forward into new mythology, new legends, new stories. So basically camp stories, effectively.
I'm getting so angry. Listen, the same thing didn't happen on Gallifrey because it's a different place. That's the whole freaking point.
Yeah.
He wants to turn everything into screwed up Earth. And I wish I could be in front of him and ask him questions, but he's forced to answer. Like, so what culture didn't have slavery? Who led a country in a war that didn't have to do some not so good things? Like, it's all bullshit. We're not recontextualizing anything. He's just propagandizing.
It is 100% agree with you on that. And again, just to give you guys an example, okay, this is Omega in the Three Doctors as he was originally envisaged, an iconic character in a great story. But being the great Russell T Davies, who obviously pushes things along into the future, this is now Omega now. A skeleton, a giant skeleton with a fat ass that can't get through a gate.
He's a CGI vomit monster, just like Sutek.
It's Lizzo.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just CGI Lizzo. So here's the thing. It's harder for Doctor Who because it's timey-wimey and all that, but at the same point, you can sort of go out pretty far and bring it back because of the whole timey-wimey thing. But the fact is, what he's saying is that, screw the canon. I'm going to make my own canon to make it say what I want to say. But here's the thing. Without canon, you have no fandom. Without canon, there's nothing that brings everyone together. There's no shared experience. If you change too much of the lore, you lose the audience. Gee, maybe Kathleen Kennedy might know some shit about that. But listen, there's this...
No, carry on. Yeah.
There's a very attractive actress named Noah Tishby. She usually guest stars. She plays like a hot spy that kicks ass or occasionally. She had a great comment, and I wanted to give her credit. She's like, no country, no group of people, no organization with a significant history can pass a purity test. You've just been around too long. You do. So, okay, maybe Churchill wasn't that great. How does he compare to Hitler? Oh, shit. I shouldn't probably have said. How does he compare to... Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
How does he compare to Mustache Man? Like, you're going to recontextualize Mustache Man and turn him into a good guy?
You're absolutely right.
It's delusional.
I mean, again, this is the trouble now with, he's literally in a period where he's smelling his own farts and thinking they're fantastic. That's where he is now as a writer. I said this from the beginning when he came back again. When I watched season 1 and he was pushing all of this diversity stuff, my point has always been, if you're going to bang that drum, you've got to make sure that your diverse characters are at their A game. The writing is at their A game, because people are going to be looking and people are going to criticize you if it's just, the lowest branch on the tree kind of writing and acting. And that's exactly what we got, didn't we?
It is. In the later episode, you can actually, there are lines in there that contradicts other things that he said in previous episodes. And I honestly, with that statement that you made back there, I don't think Russell T Davies understands time. The Doctor was about 500 years old when he first met Omega, and now he's over 2,000 years old. That's like 1,500 years, not 40, you bloody idiot. He doesn't live on Earth.
Yeah. Welcome, Ian. Good to see you. He's in.
What are we looking at? What's this picture?
Well,
what
we were talking about was okay, right?
Sorry,
two things, okay.
That's Doctor in distress.
Yeah. So we were talking about this. This is the last comments that RTD has basically said in his Doctor Who magazine column, saying he's stepping away from it. So I think it was the guys were saying that, I think it was Yuzi that saying that he's trying to hide his shame now.
Yes, he's running off into his little corner.
Yeah.
How could they not have loved it? Why didn't people like this?
Yeah.
No, he knows why they didn't like it.
Do you remember when Shooty said we'll get 3 new viewers for everyone they lose?
No, it wasn't him.
No, that was the Troon. Jinx Monsoon.
That was her. Yeah, him.
Yeah,
that's what I said. Shooty. But he believed that. They really believed that. They are that far detached from reality.
Well, the thing is, though, they look. He knows it didn't work. Don't let all that stuff fool you. People say that they're so indoctrinated into what they believe that they're blind to what's around them. That's bollocks. If you're human, you could see things, and he's just ignoring it. He knows it's failed, and he's not going to admit it because his head is so big. I would say his head is up at his own arse, but his head is so big. That's why he won't admit it. And this proves why, this. If he said all this stuff, then he's an idiot. He knows he's destroyed Doctor Who. And do you know what? I think he did it deliberately. That's what I think. So anyway.
Well, before you turned up here, I was showing the guys, this is another thing that he said. And he's basically, I won't read all of it, but he's basically talking about how he changed Omega in the latest series and about how he can change the law. And he's basically said, it's not to find the law, the time war basically he's using as the excuse. And he goes, there was plenty of fuss made about Winston Churchill being in Doctor Who when there's plenty of history to suggest he wasn't such a good guy. And that's always the way. Our history of slavery, our way of walking through the world is constantly being reanalyzed.
Okay. Okay. So this is my theory about people like them, right? So listen up, Z.
I'm listening.
This is my theory. Okay. Right.
He's going in hard, everyone.
All right. All of this is about pushing what they believe reality is. And the fastest way they can do that is through pop culture and reaching the young, the very young, right? Yeah. So if you bear that in mind, right, you can understand why they've made shows like this. Like, for instance, nobody is accountable for anything in this show. So I hear, not even the Doctor if he does something really bad. And that's how they want reality to be. They want reality. He's saying that anything goes in Doctor Who. He wants reality. Him and his cronies wants reality to be like that. Like it doesn't matter what gender you are. You can be whatever you want. You know, you don't have to listen to people who have more experience than you, because we don't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? And all of it filters through pop culture and trying to reach the young to make them believe that's what's true going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm also drawn to parallels between RTD and George Lucas. On their first one, brilliant. You know, the original trilogy, the first 4 seasons of Doctor Who. And then the second time, there's no one there to tell them, no, don't do that.
Yeah. Very good point. You're right, because that is exactly, what happened in the second iteration of Star Wars, isn't it? And
it is. The prequel trilogy, absolute mess, because George was free to do whatever the hell he wanted.
Yeah, but still better than the making it by committee of the sequels. It was still Lucas. It was just all the worst parts of Lucas unedited, but nowhere near the disaster of the sequels. And I feel like in Doctor Who, we've gone, from OT to prequels to now sequels, and it's been a sheer disaster.
He did say he was inspired by The Last Jedi.
Worst thing to be inspired by.
Oh,
exactly right. With Rey being a nobody.
Right, and Loki too, and Discovery. Like, he loves all that ideological garbage.
You see, the thing is, though, he wants everybody to realize that if you want to wear a dress, it's fine. If you want to wear a skirt, it's fine. And I actually think it's fine. Do you know what I mean? But what he wants to do is actually indoctrinate the young into this way of thinking. And that's where I draw the line.
Hence this CB series that they're getting people to pitch for, because I've had a lot of people attack me online in the last week or so because I put out quite a strong tweet about it, and I won't sit back now and say that's perfectly acceptable, because we all know why that's happening, and I'm just getting sick and tired of it. I've got a 1-year-old sort of great niece, and I was watching a CBeebies with her the other day, and there was a cartoon on, and the cartoon has a transgender lion in it, and this is the thing, and I was getting attacked online by people that are going, oh, you do realize this has got nothing to do with RTD, it's a completely different production. And the point I made was, no, if he's still involved in the Hooniverse, you're telling me that he's not going to have a hand in doing a CBeebies show,
he's going to be,
sorry, go ahead, go on.
He's going to be the invisible hand behind the scenes. And okay, so the name of that pub was the Fitzroy, and those writers were called the Fitzroy crowd or the Fitzroy group. So you can Google that and see. And even if he's not in it, I guarantee you 2 or 3 guys from this same crowd, are going to be pitching their ideology to preschoolers, man.
Yep.
Do you know what? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, mate.
I'm just saying there's 2 ways you can always spot people that have been ideologically captured, and that's lack of consistency and lack of reciprocity. Like, remember when Davros couldn't be in a wheelchair because of we can't have
it made them look bad.
Handicap have to be superhuman James Bond heroes.
They've got to have rocket powered wheelchairs with rockets coming out the front,
made by Q and Dr. Brown with a flux capacitor. But then later on, he's doing he's completely ignoring it.
I'd just like to say, right, that it really fascinates me when I watch other YouTubers talk about Doctor Who. They focus on things like Russell T he's done something bad to Doctor Who, or he's stepping down, all that stuff, right? But nobody mentions what I mentioned, that this thing is evil, right? It really is, and I actually believe that. That's why I will have nothing to do with this Doctor Who at all. And any show that has woke in it, it's so obvious what they're doing with everything. They want to push their madness into reality, and this is the only way they can do it. But we have to step back. We have to step back and not watch this show. I want Doctor Who, when it comes back, if it's still got the shit in it, I want Doctor Who to only have 1,000 people watching it. That's what I want. And the only way that's going to happen is we all step away and not talk about it. That's the only way.
And to be fair, we were all talking about how evil it was before you got here.
Yeah, I know.
But the thing is, it's not enough to not watch it. We have to fight it when they start going after young kids, because those are the most helpless, mental victims that they think they can twist and bend their thought processes and feelings. So we have to attack this.
That you're right about that. I mean, transgender story hours don't read to the homeless or veterans or the elderly. No. It's always and exclusively children.
The most vulnerable. They're doing the same thing that other people who prey on the vulnerable do, which is preying on the vulnerable. But
I think I agree with you guys. I was just going to say that, look, I agree with Ian 100%. It's evil what they're doing. They know what they're doing. There's a design to it. It's no surprise to me. But again, when you look back at those 2 seasons, and I'm on record that I didn't watch season 2. I only saw bits of the finale. But the fact of the matter is, from what I saw of season 1, there's no sci-fi element to it. Effectively, it's soap drama with ideology pushed into it. That's it.
Is.
That's what it's designed to do.
The Doctor didn't even save anyone.
It was.
And he cried every single bloody episode.
It was basically Hoodgerton and Hootown Abbey or just soap opera bullshit. But I don't want to get too off the rails, but Russell Davies, he's the poster boy, but he's certainly not the only perpetrator.
No, there's people above him that
poster
the
on
people
there.
The other day,
I keep saying it. There's people above him.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't like Russell T Davies at all, but I blame the execs and the people above him because everybody has a management structure, and they would have been seeing the dailies, and they would have seen what was coming in, and they allowed him to do it.
Well,
now that is a massive problem.
They're for it though. Look, this is another thing, right? Everybody thinks,
that's why I blame them.
When they talk about things like the white males in everything from TV shows to movies, they're always put upon whatever masculinity is not right, beauty is not right. It's all, can't you see where it's all going? They want to make it that you're ashamed to be a masculine man. Because we will defend what's going on. We will step up. We'll even throw our fists in the air or in someone's face.
That's the only
what they're trying to do is they're trying to make us feel ashamed to feel that way, to defend women, to defend our cause, whatever. So by making it kind of slightly illegal or bringing this thing into the reality about masculine men, they do this, they do that. You've got to change your attitude. You've got to be more feminine and all that rubbish. That's what I'm saying. It's an attack. Right. Yeah. And I find it really strange that no one wants to talk about things like that.
They want to make you weak.
Exactly.
Because we're the only ones that are going to protect those preschoolers when they start coming after them. So,
exactly.
But what I was referring to before, just the other day, Whoopi Goldberg said it's just as bad being black or gay in the United States as it is to be in Iran. Can you even wrap your head around such delusional thinking? And then that group that went over to Egypt to protest, they found out just how not really, maybe it is worse over here, especially the ones that got beat up.
They're stupid. All of them are stupid on that.
That is the inevitable conclusion that the woke ideology will lead you down to, a complete and utter detachment from reality. So of course 100%. They're going after masculine men, because masculine men are the ones that are supposed to protect the rest of society.
Now then, let me just enlighten you, Whoopi. Capital punishment is a legal penalty in Iran, and things that are punishable by death include murder, rape, child molestation, homosexuality, drug trafficking, armed robbery, kidnapping, terrorism, burglary, incest, fornication, adultery, sodomy, sexual misconduct, prostitution, plotting to overthrow the Islamic government, political distance, sabotage, arson, rebellion, apostasy, blasphemy, extortion, counterfeiting, smuggling, receiving consumption of alcohol, producing or preparing food, drink, cosmetics, or sanitary items that lead to death when consumed or used, producing and I can't go on with this.
It sounds like my calendar. Sounds like my calendar from last week.
Yeah.
Especially with all the fornicating.
Take them off.
She can't. You could just do a Google search. It's on Wikipedia. I'm reading it from.
Did you see her response? Though she's like, "You get killed for being gay in the U.S." Like,
no, you don't.
I know, but maybe there's one guy. Yeah, Jussie Smollett. He went looking for a hate crime, and he had to invent it because the demand for victimization far outstrips the supply. So he had to create his own.
Yeah, there's no difference with these people now to when you had it, in the 80s and the 90s. We'd see on the news that Texas Rangers had gone to a cult in the middle of the desert, to get people out. That's what they're like. That's the mentality they're in now. That they are locked into, we cannot deviate from this path at all. We've got to live in that bubble, and I think they're beyond saving, to be perfectly honest.
When people have a go at us, or when people have a go at me and say, "Oh, Ian, you think everything's shit and all that," Ian, you don't give thing a chance. I've had it. I really have had it with this nonsense. I'm hoping a studio in Hollywood will be divorced of all this nonsense and create new content, new films, new movies, new TV shows that doesn't have any of that nonsense in there, where everybody's treated equally as a character and as actors and as crew. That's what I'm hoping, and I think that's going to happen. I really do.
Well, there's already one that's starting up Did you see the
Mark
video?
Wahlberg's got his as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got one. Yeah.
Yeah. Zachary Levi, I think, is starting something. The guy who played Chuck in Shazam.
Yeah.
Did you see the video of those people in Egypt? Like, they were literally, there's like a little fence, like a movie fence. It's 3 feet high. They had all the protesters get on that side, and she's like, they are pinning us in like animals. I'm like, you're just fucking standing there just like everybody else, and there's a little cute, like,
I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
I never want to see anybody suffer, but when they were there trying to basically get access to go into Palestine, and you've got the Egyptian people coming up to them, and you see like 3 of them start to take their belts off. And I was like, sorry, this has been coming for a while now, you idiots. This is where you are with it. You know, I'm sorry, but you led yourselves into it. And then you had the other woman who, I think she was the leader of it, who basically said that, you know, a few of them had broken down with sunstroke, so they were being treated.
They're treating us like animals. The funny thing is, if they had let them go, then they would have really suffered. You know, I think they should have let Greta go into Gaza, because, you know, they would have given her a rooftop tour.
Also, right, you know, I have a friend that works at the Beeb, right, and she's
Works
kind
where?
of pretty at the BBC.
Okay.
She's quite high up in the ranks. Okay, so she tells me these things in confidence, and she says, right, that the majority of people who are in charge of the commissioning, like the commissioning editors, most of them are either trans or gay, right? Most of them. So there's no surprise that BBC is coughing up what they're coughing up, the shows that they're doing. There's some shows they can't get, they can't do that with. Like, for instance, I'm Not Going Out. They can't do that. They can't put that woke stuff in there because Lee Mack won't allow it, and it's really successful. And there's other shows as well. But make no mistake, the BBC is converted. Absolutely converted. All you have to do is watch their TV shows, their news and everything.
Yeah.
Even to the point where they will lie about certain things in the news and create statistics that doesn't even exist until people start investigating. Do you know what I mean? So this is the reason why when Doctor Who comes back, it still will be the same thing. No matter if it's 5 years, 6 years, if they don't get rid of that regime, it's going to be the same thing.
Well,
I won't be watching. I won't be watching.
I think you're right, Ian, and I think I've said this. You know, I'm on record many a time now of saying it needs a minimum of 5, but I would say 10 years away. And the reason I say that is because Doctor Who, I'll put the part of the BBC to the side for a second, but Doctor Who in particular has been infiltrated by RTD and his crew from top to bottom. So you look at all of the stuff. I mean, a classic example is Doctor Who magazine. Look at all of the stuff they bung into that now, you know, and they're doing, you know, what is it? They'd had one article and sort of leading the charge for trans or something like that on the cover. And it's like people going into WH Smith's or news agents, they just want to pick up a magazine that talks about Doctor Who and the history of Doctor Who. They don't want to. They don't want to see someone, you know, a bloke dressed in a dress.
Yeah.
You know, that's it, and that's where everything is infiltrated. So it needs that long break to purge these people, because if it comes back in within the next 5 years, I know exactly what's going to happen. It's either going to be Pete McTeague, who's an acolyte of RTD and Co., or it's going to be Moffat again, or one of those cronies, and it'll just be exactly the same again. You need someone with balls of steel that's going to come back and go, do you know what? If you want me to do this,
but they won't be asking for that, John.
Well, but that, I know that, but that's the only way to save it. You know, that is the only way to save it.
The only way to save it is to get rid of the regime at the BBC, because the BBC owns it now. Just get rid of all of them, and then get someone in that's not lined up with the ideology. That's the only way to say. That's not going to happen.
I wanted to ask Ian or John, who's in charge of that? Who picks the people that run?
What's his name? Z?
Russell T Davies?
No, not him. The guy that's in charge of the BBC. That's in charge of.
I can't remember.
But
what's his name? Something Davies. Something Davies.
You've got Tim Davies, who's the chairman, and then you've got, isn't it Piers Wenger, who's controller of BBC One?
Yes.
Who picks
so
him?
You've got those two.
Well, it's nobody picks them. What I'm really surprised of, and correct me if I'm wrong, bankers actually end up running the BBC. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they come from the industry or anything like that. It's all money driven. And it's really a shame, really, because that money's not theirs. It's ours. We're paying for the BBC, yet we have no control of the shit that's coming out of the BBC. Should we not have any control, any say?
That's why it needs to be defunded.
Yeah, that's what I think.
100%.
Absolutely.
Because if it goes to a subscription model, it's not going to fix all the ills that they've got at the moment. But what it will do is it will basically stop them using taxpayers' money with the TV license to basically fund this ideological nonsense.
Absolutely.
And it basically means they have to stand on their own 2 feet with their subscription money that's coming in to make these productions. So if something isn't working and it's not making them money, or they're not getting the cost back on advertising, they'll dump it. I mean, I think I said to you, Ian, before, when you look at Netflix, whether you love Netflix or whether you hate Netflix, normally what you find with a series that Netflix does is if that show, once that season is finished, hasn't hit the required viewing figures that they want, they come straight out pretty much within a short period of time and they basically announce that it's been cancelled. They don't mess around with it,
No, not at all. I was devastated when Dirk Gently ended after 2 seasons.
Yeah.
There was a great series.
Justine Bateman.
Yeah.
She said something that really hit home. She said that the people that are in charge of entertainment now, the Netflix people and Amazon and Apple TV and all them, they're not making stuff for us. They're making stuff for themselves.
Exactly.
They really are. You know what I mean? We didn't ask for any of the stuff that they're giving us, but they're making it. Someone like Bezos, who's really entrenched in this nonsense, don't be too surprised if they cast a black man as James Bond. Don't be too surprised. I'd laugh if they did that. I really want them to do that. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like trying to make money and trying to make a successful show, but going in the opposite direction.
Yeah, but the thing is, John, that's not their business. Amazon, that's not their business. It's a side hustle for them making movies.
Oh, yeah.
Their business is what Amazon does, selling stuff. And same thing with Apple TV. Their business is making computers and technology. Their side hustles making TV shows. You know what I mean?
It's pocket change to them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Power isn't pocket change. That much is certain.
No, yeah. So basically, the BBC, there's a board that basically chooses all the people to run it. The board is appointed by His Majesty under the advice of the Prime Minister. There are also some members that are appointed by the King and Council, whatever that is, and then there's other non-executive members appointed by the Board of Nominations and Governments, which would be like the bank and the money people.
Yes, is exactly what I said. Yeah,
but I'm saying maybe the king himself could actually
because the king and all those people on the board, they're all part of the same group. They're upper class, middle class people with shitloads of money. They're not going to They're not going to endanger their money, are they?
Well, that's why I'm saying that change is unlikely until the actual governing of the UK changes. However, if they go to a subscription model, that makes them accountable to market forces, and you are on a performance basis, and you sink or swim whether or not you can get subscribers. So absolutely. At best, maybe they just go broke and dissolve and go bankrupt.
Yeah, I mean, again, when you got people at RTD, they're always great with, these are the kinds of people that will just love other people's money, because that whole 2-3 years of RTD stuff, I would argue that stuff that I saw from a production point of view, I would actually say that earlier eras are actually probably better looking than the last 2 to 3 years, and you got to ask yourself, where the heck has the money gone? Because allegedly
the gigantic disco TARDIS with its bloody stupid lighting system.
They
somebody
down.
You expect him to come out rollerblading at some point, don't you? Just going around.
You know what? I saw a clip from Doctor Who once, and it made me laugh. And there was this bit in it where the woman goes to him, "Are we going to change clothes now?" And he goes, "Oh, you know it, honey." I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah, and at that point, you're just waiting for a squadron of Daleks to come in and just literally wipe him out,
kill him.
Ian, didn't you say? Ian, didn't you tell me there was a small independent studio in England that is it ITV or?
It's not they're not small. They're entrenched in this ideology as well.
No, but there's somebody who isn't, right? And they are small, but they
no, not really. No.
The only thing that could potentially change in the next few years is because the BBC charter's up for renewal again in the next few years, and the Reform Party in the UK, who are ahead in the polls at the moment, they've already put the BBC on notice to say, prepare yourselves, because when we get in, we are effectively defunding you.
Well, same thing's happening over here with PBS and NPR because, it looks like that's Trump already said he wasn't going to give any more money to them because the taxpayers shouldn't be funding stuff that's politically slanted to one side only.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, so what you're saying is there's no hope. There's nobody in the UK that's ready to make a decent show.
Look, right. The thing is, though, look, if today or tomorrow they got someone to do Doctor Who, right, and they didn't get anyone from the old camp, Bad Wolf or Russell T or even the Moth, they didn't get him. They got someone new, right? He's basically a lamb in a box with wolves. What do you do when you're in there? Do you know what I mean? It may sound great and you may have the best intentions. It's just like being a politician. You go in there and you want to make good for the world. You want to help people. You go in there and you find it's corrupt and there's nowhere to go. You either make a deal with someone to actually push something forward, or you don't, or you get kicked out. And that's the same thing with the BBC and Doctor Who. Whoever takes over, right? Look, if they hired me to do it, right?
I love it. Every time he says they hired me, it's always an advert to the BBC.
No,
isn't it, mate?
If they hired me to do it, right, and there was no restrictions, right? Even if they hired Z, right? It is the easiest thing in the world to get 10 million watching that one episode. It's so easy to do. Right? It's not rocket science. You make the show for the fans. That's what you do. Right?
Yeah, but at what cost?
But they don't want to do that. They just don't want to do that.
But at what cost, Ian? Because when we get you back on the channel and you've got your bright blue and pink hair and you're driving around London in your pink Jaguar.
No, I'm just saying, right? The point I'm trying to make, right, is that they're all like, from my friend again is saying to me that they're flummoxed. They don't understand why it didn't work, right? Everybody knows the reason why it didn't work, right? Everyone, right? And it's the easiest thing in the world. I said, even someone like Z or even Istafobus walking into the BBC and they hand him the reins. It's easy to get 20 million watching that show.
Oh yeah,
you know what to do.
I would grab Sydney Sweeney, put her in a bikini, come back
a lot of money,
and get Matthew Good and make him.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what I mean?
And I would go back to the Daleks and the Cybermen and make it fun and adventurous and absolutely void of any sort of political or ideological message.
Also, right, the thing that you notice as well, when I was watching the Matt Smith era, okay, I have this little cousin, like little Leo, right? He was like, I don't know, how old was he? Like 6 at the time, watching. And every time Amy was on, he'd like his eyes would be wide and be watching Amy and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Him and me both.
It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science for fans, is it? I mean, even him at 6, that's what I'm saying. Good looking women, right? Doctor being the Doctor, blue box, adventure, excitement. It's not that hard. It really isn't,
Yeah, and when I say Sydney Sweeney, I mean, any decent looking, attractive woman. I'm sure England has a few.
And that's what I mean. We need to get past this era of beautiful and sexy being bad words and being frowned upon, because for decades we had that in shows, you know, and it was always the same when you went to the films, wasn't it? You know, women looked at the hunky muscle guys on the screen, you know, the guys, you know, enjoyed watching the action guys beating people up, but then they also looked at the beautiful women on the screen as well. It's no different. Everybody liked that element to it. Doctor Who was the same with the companions in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and then 2000s onwards. You know, it's no different. It's just that needs to come back. And the trouble is, we're in a climate now where even if people want to do it, in those companies like BBC as an example, they're scared of their own shadows. They're tripping over their toes because they think, oh, you know, I can't put that in there because, you know, I'll be hung reported by the BBC. You know,
can.
You see whose name's been thrown around a lot in the last week.
Who's?
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's J. Michael Straczynski from Babylon 5.
Yeah, he's going to be every bit as bad as Russell T. Davies, though. He's drank the Kool-Aid, man.
Yeah, he's putting himself forward for it, isn't he?
Can I ask you, who you don't have page 3 girls anymore, do you?
We still have page 3 in the Star and the Sun, but they're not as
okay.
Can I just say about that? Can I just say about that quickly about page 3 girls in the Sun? Do you remember in the like 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s where you go in a garage and they had the calendars with the naked women on there?
Yeah.
You know, they did away with them. But with my job and going out to see clients who are like motor traders, and I go into their garages, there's like a company that was specifically on the quiet. They still create them. So they're still in the garages now. You know, people are defying the elites now by just pinning them back up in the garages.
Do you remember Z in Die Hard where he's running around, obviously, and there's a sequence where he runs and he sees that naked girl on the wall and he goes, "Hello, babe," and he touches it and he runs off with the gun. Do you remember that sequence?
It's
never be in a film.
A couple of times, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does it. Yeah, it'd never be in a film today, never, for some stupid reason.
Is there a current it girl in the UK? Like, do you have an equivalent of Sydney Sweeney over there? Is there somebody who's just bursting with popularity?
No, not really.
No. That's so sad.
No one jumps out.
We just got munters over here.
She really, I'll give her that. She definitely jumps out. That's a shame. It really is.
It is. Again, right. You know, the real meaning behind everything that's happened in Doctor Who is not nice, and it's not a good thing for the world, in my opinion. Again, right. You know, I look. Nobody can accuse me of not believing in diversity, man. All you have to do is watch Bad Day. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
right. So nobody can accuse
your video.
Absolutely.
Feed.
Yeah. He's as diverse as they come. Everybody.
Wait a moment. Z's gone. I can't hear what Z's saying.
What?
Oh, I can hear you now.
I'm absolutely here.
Well, interestingly, guys, I also wanted to show you this. Right, this is what Peter Davison said in a Starburst interview this week. Okay, so he was asked about Billy Piper coming back, and this is what he said. He says, "I don't know what Billy Piper is doing. I've just read about it, and I don't know what it's about. It's a completely mad idea. I don't think she is the Doctor. I think it's kind of just a hand grenade thrown into the final episode to try and go, whoa, what's this? And then it's almost like, get out of that. I love Billy Piper. I think she was the best companion there's been, but that is partly because she was written in a different way from the other companions. It was almost like she was the center of the story. You were seeing the Doctor through her eyes. I thought she was a fantastic companion, but she's got a great career and she's got options galore. I don't know why she would voluntarily choose to go back to Cardiff for a year.
Did him a favor.
Yeah. So that would be my view on it, I think. And that's why she said, and again, I paraphrase, she said, coming back one more time, because I think, and this is me thinking about it, I think Shooty left in a rush and he was put in a corner and he called in favors basically. And Billy answered that call to basically say, look, I'll do this. But again, as soon as you saw that, you know, and we talked about it, straight away, you're like, you know, it's gone way beyond jumping the shark now. You know, it's beyond any parody that you could possibly create at this point.
This is a man who is completely out of ideas.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, I said it, every decision, every line that it just reeks of desperation.
Yeah.
This is really well written, though. Like, just how he describes what made her good. I mean, this is almost poetic, right?
Yeah. And again, let's not forget that it was a few years ago when Jodie was announced. He was chased off of Twitter because he said he didn't say anything controversial. All he said was he finds it a shame that they've turned the Doctor female because the Doctor was effectively the only male role model that was not a physical. In the physical sense, so the Doctor would always try and figure things out and solve things with his mind, whereas you had A-Team and you had Knight Rider and things like that, fighting with their fists, which is all great, but he was effectively saying you've taken that away from boys now by doing this, and he got attacked for it, and he left Twitter because of it, and he was absolutely 100% right on what he said. And he's come out now with another common sense, post that he's put out or interview he's done. And he's saying exactly what we're all thinking, Yeah,
but we would have said it more bluntly, wouldn't we?
Yeah, we would.
We would have said it as eloquent as him.
Yeah. You would have gone, no, I don't care shit.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
That's
just posted an image with what the.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a perfect description, though, of her showing up. Like we said, it's a desperate move. He's like lobbing a hand grenade. That's There is no better description of, and basically RTD's little farewell message. That's him just sort of like spraying some bullets after the grenade, just trying to get people to duck their head.
What's interesting about Doctor Who is that Doctor Who has always been in the forefront of moving forward, more so in science fiction than other science fiction shows, right? It was one of the first shows to actually create a fandom, believe it or not, Doctor Who was. The thing I like about Doctor Who is they try something new. Like, for instance, right, it may be old hat now. When Leela joined the cast, and with Tom Baker was the thinking man. Leela was the one that was kicking ass. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she wasn't. Do you know what I mean? She was like jumping from stairs, sticking a knife in someone's face. You know,
she was an original girl boss.
She was. Yeah,
oh, she's fantastic. And
fantastic.
This again defeats these idiots' mindset of we need diversity now and equality. Look, you had that in the previous decades. There's so much evidence to prove that was there.
Yeah.
But again, this is a forced diversity, and they're forcing it upon us because it's pushing a movement. It's a cult.
Yeah, it's more than that. It's trying to re-educate the young and try and make them believe in this crap that they're pushing. So I would say to every young man, be a man, stand up for yourself. If someone tries to pick on you, punch him out. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and before you turned up, Ian, again, I found a Doctor Who magazine article. It was one of the first interviews Russell T Davies gave in 2003, and this is at the bottom of what he said. He said, and I'm convinced that Doctor Who needs supervision more than any other British drama I can think of, because it has the potential to be ruined by big collars and funny hats and comedy accents.
That's exactly.
So
what
there you go. Exactly. So he was the beggar to his own demise in the end, wasn't he?
I mean, I'm speaking with Z here. When I saw the picture of Ncuti, my heart broke, and it was the same feeling I had when I saw Jodie as the Doctor.
Yeah,
I was like,
well, it could have been a lot different for Jodie.
Could have been.
If they'd kept the whole black hoodie thing and she dropped a stupid northern accent, it wouldn't have made the stories any better, but it would have made her a more credible Doctor.
Yeah, if she had longer hair and she looked feminine, she was wearing something feminine, do you know what I mean, to attract the young boys, that would be great. But they didn't. They just like a clown. Yeah. Just like a bloody clown.
Her outfit was as bad as Colin Baker's.
You will always get 10% of men watching something because
of women.
She's hot. Yeah. Just it really doesn't matter How about all
she,
those movies in the 90s with the motorcycles and the guns and the bikinis?
Exactly.
Built-in audience.
Yeah. My favorite.
When she first turned up, and again, I'm not a fan. I didn't want a female doctor. I've said before, I'm on record for that. But when she turned up in that little intro of her being announced as the doctor, the outfit she had on at the time, I thought, why didn't they just stick with that outfit? Because she looked more doctory in that outfit walking through the woods than they did in the stupid LGBT diversity Andy Pandy
they
outfit.
wanted to push that. That's why they wanted to push that nonsense. That's why. I mean, it's look, it's incredible. I don't want to be talking about Doctor Who or all of this stream. It's incredible what they've done.
Tough.
We know that they failed. They know that they failed. They knew they didn't cross the finishing line. They know that they've lost the fandom. Right, they're gonna hold it for 3 years or whatever. That's what I think. And when they bring it back, they're gonna double down. If the regime hasn't left the BBC, they're gonna double down. Believe it, right?
Yeah,
believe it. It's dead.
I think you're right, and I think for me, I've given up any hope of it coming back, and for me to be surprised by it in a good way, because I think that sadly, like a lot of us, and I'm sure you guys were the same as well, when RTD came back for the 60th, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I gave it a go.
Same. Yeah.
That first episode with the Star Beast and the pronouns and everything. That was it. I was like, well, no, sorry, you've lost all the goodwill that you kind of got back from me.
Yeah, I mean, it was when he was announced as coming back. I had the same level of excitement when Disney was going to buy Star Wars, because I thought he was going to have some real money behind it. Now we'll be able to produce some excellent stories, and we all know how that turned out. And this has gone exactly the same way.
It's true. It's true. I mean, as I said, right, it is kind of, when you look at behind it, it's kind of evil, all this stuff that they're doing. But I, in my opinion, just let them have it now. It's a corpse. They're stamping on the corpse now. So it's just
history will not remember them kindly.
No. And again, hopefully, in decades to come, that things have become normal again, and people will look back on this woke era and just like, I can't believe they actually did all of that in that time. Fingers crossed that happens. But it's not.
It's quite recent that you can go back and do that. I had another look at Auckland 55, and I had to turn that off after 5 minutes.
Flipping hell, man! You suffered by watching that again.
I didn't watch any of it. I didn't watch any of it. The moment I saw David Tennant split and shooting his underpants and banging having a big hammer and banging the
emerging from his dick.
Yeah, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I knew. Well, I knew before anyway. I knew that this is a horrible thing. This is an evil thing that they're doing. So just said, good luck to them. I'm not going to be part of it at all.
And I think Garbage is right there. I mean, we've talked about this before, Ian, as well. And this is something you're on board with, new IPs, new ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only way forward now. And I think we look at it, every single beloved, what we call franchise, has been decimated in the last decade.
Absolutely, every single one.
Yeah,
even new shows that they're introducing now. I mean, what is it? Department Q is a remake of something from Sweden or Switzerland or whatever, right? And they've literally made that woke. After 2 episodes, I was out. I was like, what am I watching here? Do you know what I mean?
I watched all of it. I thought it was all right.
That was terrible. Absolutely awful. I only watched 2 episodes, mind you, though. Do you remember that bit where the man of color, shall we speak, walked up to the fence and he leaped over it, and then the white guy was like trying to go. It's like I was like, I've had enough. That's enough.
I've said this before. All right, guys, quit here. I'm going to say I've walked in before, and my mum has been watching, The Equalizer with Queen Latifah.
Oh God, no.
And I kid you not, there were 2 scenes that I've walked into. One of them was the size that she is. She literally is a massive shootout, and she runs like 100 miles an hour and leaps over a wall. And I'm thinking, I'm sorry, but Queen Latifah, with the unit you've got, it'd be like trying to shift a wardrobe, I'm afraid, you know. And then the other one is she's now dating a guy that is probably 20 years younger than her. Fair enough. Okay. But she meets him for breakfast at a cafe, and she sits down, and the first thing he says is, "Sorry, can I just say just how absolutely beautiful you look this morning?" And straight away you're like, "Oh, she must have written that into the script." There's no way that that's organic. It can't
Every
be.
female character has to be affirmed.
I wanted to say you were beautiful, but I wasn't sure if I should put stunning or brave before beautiful or after. I'm very confused about which order.
I mean,
is this sexual harassment?
I don't know. But to be fair, Queen Latifah isn't a face, isn't she's not ugly. She's not. She's not bad looking at all. It's just
she
that
ain't
she has
a tiny woman.
Yeah,
she ain't a tiny woman, man.
Yeah,
she's not
I mean, I've seen her in films. I saw one where was it called The Holiday, where she thought she was dying of cancer, and I thought that was quite a cute movie. I thought it was all right, and I do like her. I think she's got some star quality, but to actually put her in a show that was dominated by a man for many years and change the show so it's like a woman, it's stupid. You know what I mean? Because women can't do what men can do physically. No. You know what I mean? So anyway, whatever.
Do you know what? When you say that about Queen Latifah, for me, every time I see her on screen, I always remember. Do you remember the comedy movie Road Trip from the early 2000s?
I think so. Yeah.
And he sleeps with that big woman, and the next day he's got her underwear in the bus when they're driving. It's like a massive like leopard skin, and the guy goes, "What did you do? Did you kill a cheetah?" It's like I think like that with Queen Latifah.
I know. Well, Queen Latifah is that she's all right. She's got some star quality. She just shouldn't have been in that show. But do you know what? Right, we can take the mickey out of it a lot, but it was a huge success. The Equalizer. It was a huge. How many seasons? 4 seasons or some nonsense like that.
4 seasons.
So it was a huge success. So who are we to criticize?
And it got three good movies.
Yeah. Well, Denzel, isn't it? Denzel.
Yeah,
we're the elite, mate. We get to say what is good and what is bad. Quite frankly, you know that.
We're the audience. We take the terms.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, moving on to the next thing to discuss, guys.
Thank God.
I wanted to talk about the Fantastic Four movie because,
oh no,
again, to start with, have you seen this image that's released this week? Giganto being in the movie. Now, being a comic book fan myself, if it was any other time, I would be so happy to see Giganto in a Fantastic Four movie. But with what I've seen of Fantastic Four so far, with the insufferable Pedro Pascal in it as Reed Richards, I'm just not even, excited about this whatsoever. And, and a lot of people have criticized this, but to be fair, it doesn't look too bad. And when you look at the comic book cover, I like the fact that they've gone for that, but it's just what I don't understand. This is the thing I don't understand all the time with, especially like Marvel as well. You'll try and get that comic accurate, but the rest of it you'll then tweak.
Well, this isn't in the movie. This is a
this is a
little Caesar commercial.
Is it really?
Yeah. This isn't going to be. It's a Little Caesars commercial in South America, even. It's Central America.
They're in it, aren't they? Because they get out the car, don't they? And then they run off.
Yeah, they're in the advert. Yeah, but that on the comic book, he's holding Visible Girl. Was he in this commercial? Was he holding?
You got the comic cover there.
Was he holding Reed Richards instead of Visible Girl?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
Something that's always bugged me about this is who tied up Mr. Fantastic.
I have no idea. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But it goes to show you the marketing department cares more.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
the marketing department cares more than the filmmakers, man. I mean, obviously the CGI is budgeted for commercial, but if this had been the movie, it would look better, and we would have like real Fantastic Four.
I don't know whether this film's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. I mean,
of course not.
Yeah, people don't know. Well, the normies don't know the Fantastic Four. People like us, we do. But normies, they don't know who the Fantastic Four is. So it's going to be interesting to see how much money actually makes at the end of the day,
the lead hero is a woman and the lead villain is a woman, but they're not going to let them fight because they're going to have to talk and work it out and end up working together.
Are they going to put aside their differences and work together?
Yeah, like because
God.
one is going to be stunning and the other brave, and when they come together, they will be stunning and brave, and then they will fight the real bad person, which of course is a man, Galactus,
a straight white male.
Yeah, and we all know, of course, the big rumor is that, you know, in the film, it's actually Sue Storm and it's
not a rumor.
No, that's definitely
yeah. So I mean,
hey, we might even get some real silver scissoring, like all jokes aside.
And then we'll have Pedro Richards crying as he watches them confront Galactus in the distance. You know, it depends. That could happen.
It depends on the level of which. I'm sorry. It depends on the level that they're going to have Sue Cuck read. So,
yeah, well, you've seen the trailers. You've seen the trailers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Completely cut. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's going to be.
I mean, as far as having a intimate scene with the silver scissor. That might be going a little far, but they might imply it. Like she'll come out of the room and she'll be putting a robe on. Yeah.
Johnny, as we said, Johnny's going to be gay. I can see that now without a doubt. It's
just going to be the flaming torch.
Every time he's on my monitor, it burns a little hole in the screen. He's so flaming.
The Fantastic Four is going to make a bit of money, but it's not going to get its budget back. And the reason why, are we listening, Marvel? The reason why is because you're turning a boys brand into a female brand. Please stop doing that. If you stop doing that, you'll find out that you'll have lots of money coming your way. But you don't care, do you? You really don't give a shit. So there you go.
Meanwhile, the producers of the ballerina are just so confused. They don't understand why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, that was a good film. I enjoyed it. It wasn't great, but it was enjoyable. And we know why it failed. We know why it failed.
But they don't. They're genuinely confused, which just makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Well, again, I mean, tracking at the moment, I mean, they're predicting that, you know,
they can
125 to 136. I don't think that's going to happen at all.
Okay.
What about you guys?
Where did they get that number since Superman is kicking the crap out of Fantastic Four and it's tracking for less? So you know where this number came from. I actually do know where the number came from.
Yes, it's completely made up.
No. Yeah. They went online and they said computers are crashing and tickets are selling out.
Yeah.
And the few people that actually want to see the film, they like FOMO'd out and panicked and they got in a race to buy tickets, all like 300 of them, but they all bought them in a period of 5 minutes. And they took that period of 5 minutes and extrapolated it out for 2 months and have declared it's going to make $3.5 billion based on ticket sale activity.
The second week drop off for this movie is going to be astronomical.
I think you're right. I think
as soon as the reviews come out,
I think the first week drop off is going to be pretty bad.
There have been a few reviews, right? Haven't there?
I don't see it.
Reviewed it.
Listen, I don't see it beating Thunderbolts or Captain America. Maybe, but I don't. I can't see this like breaking 70 million. Now, I may eat my words, but I just don't see it, man.
I don't know. I just, you know, looking at the picture there with Sue Storm, couldn't they not put her in something that was, you know?
Well, of course they can.
I was just going to say,
because you wish it.
I was just going to say, you know, Vanessa Kirby is a beautiful woman. You know, I liked her in the Mission Impossible one, but
she's a little road worn, man. Let's be honest. She's not ugly, but
you can be my dummy mummy.
For a side piece,
her hair? What have they done to her hair though? Because it's like they've really peroxided her hair, which I don't think works.
Well, because she's not blonde, and she always plays blonde, so her hair must be like steel wool at this point.
When the Fantastic Four was created, I was trying to think of ages here. So Reed Richards must have been in his 30s, like mid 30s. Sue was probably late, beginning 20s, right, or something like, or mid 20s. Johnny was a little younger, and I think the thing was older than, or just the same age as Reed, right? Am I correct in that? So that's
what,
the
in the
thing you
comic books
see.
you're talking about?
In the comic book, in the comic book. So I would never cast someone like Kirby to play Sue Storm at all. It would have been someone younger, someone more hotter.
Oh,
You
it's
know
the
what I mean?
Fantastic 40s. Because they're all,
Yeah.
or the Fantastic 40 something.
Yes, I'm saying it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're
Well,
already the defense of the old folks' home. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
battle.
again,
Yeah, go on.
I don't think, you know, whether you like it or not, you can see what James Gunn is doing. You know, when Cavill wasn't cast and for this new DC universe as Superman, he brought in a younger actor to play Superman. Whether you like him or not, and whether you like the cast, he was going for a younger cast because he was obviously thinking in his head, right, if that's a success and it builds out from there, I need these people to be around for multiple movies. Now, if I have Cavill, and granted, I love Cavill as Superman, but he would age out after several movies. You know,
No, he wouldn't. No, well, the
yeah,
thing
I
is,
think he would.
The thing, yeah, well, depends on
Because what is
how
he,
he
40
looks.
odd now?
It doesn't matter. You can get 3 movies out of him, right? And let's face it, right? The Superman we loved after the 3rd movie, it was done basically.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. So you can get 3 movies out of Cavill, and as long as Cavill stays fit and healthy, he'll be fine. Do you know what I mean? It's just that he wanted to create his own universe. He wanted to turn Superman into Star-Lord, which is what he's doing. He's turning the whole of the mythology of Superman into the Star-Lord thing, where Superman has quips and all that nonsense. He's not thinking about Superman as people like me know him. And quite frankly, he can do whatever he wants. He might be right. It might be a terrific film. Who knows?
No,
But-
it's
Yeah,
more
sorry.
than that. He's turning all of DC into the Traumaverse. Like the next big movie, a body horror movie, Clayface. Yeah, because when I think of DC Comics, body horror naturally.
Look, the way to save
but-
money, right, is to basically, if you're going to cast Fantastic Four, you find unknowns.
Yeah.
Just like when they cast Chris Reeve, he was an unknown, right? Find someone that looks and could act well as Reed and Sue Storm, who has to be either in her teens or her 20s, whatever. The same thing with Johnny. Make sure he's handsome, whatever, because that's what the Fantastic Four is. But they don't do that, do they? They think that hiring an actor that's been in a couple of things will make people come to see the film. Gone are the days of the star system. The star system does not exist anymore. Nobody gives a shit about stars being in movies. The only people that care is the Hollywood and the production companies themselves, because they figure they can sell it to other countries around the world if you have Brad Pitt, which is true, right? But for us normies, fans, we don't give a shit who's in the movie as long as it's done well, right?
Yeah.
So
I think Pedro Pascal, this will be his downfall movie. I think he'll start fading over the next few years from this movie. I think I actually think there's a definite Pedro Pascal fatigue. Not just me. I think there's a lot of people that are just fed up of seeing his face everywhere, seeing his stupid comments. You know, it's just. And again, if I being a Fantastic Four fan myself, he's not Reed Richards in any form.
None of them are
No.
their characters.
No.
Did you see that? Did you see the meme going on around Twitter with the ultrasound? That's a woman is having an ultrasound and they're looking at the screen. She's pregnant, she's having a baby, and it's Pedro Pascal. And the nurse goes, "Don't worry, that's just Pedro Pascal. He's in everything."
Well, Mr. Fantastic's going to be a cuck. Obviously, Sue's going to be the girl boss. You've got flaming homo over there. And one thing you're definitely not going to get is a Yancey Street accent or any mention of Ben's Jewish heritage.
Exactly.
No, you're going to see Ben pretending he's Italian, cooking sauce instead of clobbering guys.
Yes, I'm saying it's ridiculous, isn't it? So no, and then they'll sit there and they'll be really surprised that it didn't make its budget back.
Exactly that. And have you guys, on a similar connection to it, have you guys braved Ironheart at all?
No.
Same.
No.
No. I've heard things. I've heard terrible things.
Don't care. Got nothing. That stuff's got nothing to do with anything. It shouldn't even been commissioned. Good luck to everyone who wants to watch that shit. No way, Jose.
And it's another one where they had to get it out. I think they're just as embarrassed with it as we are to even see it pop up on our recommended lists. really.
But
yeah,
if this movie tanks, that'll be 3 in a row, and I'm not sure there's any coming back from that.
I think they will come back. They've got Doomsday coming, and they haven't even got a script apparently. So there you go.
Well, they've already said, they've come out this week, haven't they? And they've said Fantastic Four movie leads directly into Doomsday. So, we know, I know what's going to happen. I know Galactus is going to come over as well and be the big bad threat as well in Doomsday. I can see that happening. But it's all diminishing returns with them. You just wish that they would stop and recalibrate, but they're just not going to do that because they just want to keep the sausage factory going, don't they? Personally, for me, talking about Superman, I'm looking forward to Superman. I'm still looking forward to watching that movie. There's some elements I've seen so far that, I'm like, I don't like that, but overall, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, we'll
and
see.
I do hope we do have an era of a DC universe where movies are coming out, and they might not be world beaters, but they could be decent movies.
Yeah,
and it just puts Marvel further in their place. The
thing with the Fantastic Four movie is every press release and interview that you do makes me want to see this film less.
Yeah, you're right,
100%. Yeah,
the thing is, at
Superman,
the budgets,
I'm still interested.
At the budgets they're making these movies for, decent isn't good enough.
That's the thing, you see. Like, and look, I know how the whole system works, and the reason why these films cost so much is because the people at the top, they're getting their pay, they're getting their wedge. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There's no way exec producers and producers would green light this unless they're getting a huge chunk from that budget. Now, they could have cut costs if they cast unknowns. They could have done. They easily could have bring the budget down even more if they did that, right? But they didn't want to do that because they're idiots.
Yeah, what is it? The salaries just for the actors is over $600 million for Doomsday.
Like, why?
That movie's going to be over $1 billion.
Yeah. Well, this was the what they saying about the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies trap, wasn't it? Because where they were talking about doing the 4th movie, they said the trouble was they were talking about maybe doing a whole new cast because you've had those 3 movies, the actors were too expensive now, so it shot the budget up. So that was their excuse for effectively, stalling on that project.
Wasn't the guy who played Captain Kirk? He was an unknown at the time, wasn't he?
Oh, Chris Pine.
Pretty much, yeah. He'd done a few. I think he'd done some, sort of like Disney sort of Cinderella type movies and stuff like that, but he wasn't.
What's his name? Quinto, whatever his name is. He was from that show Heroes. Wasn't he?
Exactly.
But you know what? I did like the first Star Trek, the JJ first one.
I did.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it wasn't that bad. Only when they
the other 2 were garbage.
Absolute rubbish. Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah,
they went that way. I understand if he wanted to do a Star Wars just to get the audience in. And now he's got the audience. He should have made it real Star Trek rather than pew pew pew. Do you know what I mean? The second one and the third one, they should be original stories because they're in a different timeline. But they didn't. They didn't do that because they didn't have any ideas, and he wasn't talented enough to push Star Trek.
He just tried to adapt Wrath of Khan again, basically.
Yeah, because he had no ideas.
Exactly.
Ideas.
Well, there was not a single science fiction person involved in the creation of that movie. My favorite Star Trek movie is Star Trek: The Motion Picture. So you can guess how what I thought about 2009. It was, I just, it's funny. I was kind of excited in the theater on the edge of my seat. There was lots of frenetic action. They didn't give you time to think about how stupid everything was. But then walking back to the cars, my friends are like, "What the hell did we just watch?"
I don't know. I still think it's a good movie, and I think he did bring it into the normies era of things, right? Because my sister doesn't like Star Trek. She loved that one. And also, right, it was quite good about the Spock story. They wanted him to be so and so, and he said, "Bye, I'm going to join Starfleet." All that stuff is terrific because
Star Trek isn't for normies. Once you make it for normies, it's not Star Trek anymore.
That's my point. That's my
and
point.
He tried
But
to
it's
make it
not
like
for
Star
normies.
Wars, basically.
Sorry,
He tried to make it like Star Wars, didn't he?
he did, yeah,
Yeah.
he did, yeah,
When it's for
But-
normies, you end up with SG-1, and that's brilliant.
yeah.
Like I said, but no science fiction. It was sheer fantasy. It was just like, oh, we'll beam halfway across the universe. Oh, light speed.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll just travel across the galaxy in 35 seconds.
But
Black
the thing
holes are just, we'll
all right. So the thing I
just
liked
go
about
around
it
it.
was that it was fast, and it did it did like the characters. You can tell the development of Captain Kirk and Spock and stuff like that, and it did. And I liked how short the skirt was on
Yeah.
Uhura. Do you know what I mean? I loved it, and
Oh.
and the guy played Chekhov was brilliant. It worked. The whole thing worked, but they shouldn't have stuck with that. They should have in the second one. They should have went, let's do Star Trek now.
Let's make the
have
Vulcan
intelligence.
Let's make the Vulcan the most emotional of all of the
Yeah.
cast. They didn't. They destroyed the characters. They didn't.
Wait, no,
Yeah.
that's not true, because he was half human, right? So he has, and also everybody thinks that Vulcans don't have emotions. No, they do. They're potent. That's why they practice this,
But
keep
they
it
are
down.
suppressed, and he's already defeated his half human side long before he joined Starfleet.
Well,
That
he was
guy
compromised.
on that movie wasn't Spock.
He was
think-
compromised.
I think for me as well, though, as a fan, one of the main things that was irking me watching those films was I hated the shiny Enterprise. I really didn't like
Oh,
it.
the ridiculous amounts of lens flare.
Yeah, exactly. And when you watch like Motion Picture and Wrath of Khan, I like it's got that kind of worn-in feel to it. When you go
because they're
onto
models.
the bridge.
It looked like
when you go on the bridge, and then you go down into engineering in the JJ.
it looked
Star
like a
Trek
brewery.
films.
Yes, because it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
Big pipes of water and stuff.
It
Listen,
was.
unless
Texas.
Spock was 28 and it was time to get laid, that was not Spock.
And when they did the turbo lifts where it's literally going all left, right, up, down, all across like that, and you're like, what? Who thought that would be a good idea?
Mind it. I thought it was a lot of fun personally, but I wanted real Star Trek after that. I thought, okay, this is a good way to start. You've got the normies in, right?
No,
let's
they
just go forward. And they destroyed
Vulcan.
it.
If you
They
start
destroyed
like
Vulcan and
that,
Romulus.
then if you start like that, there's no way to go. There's no direction to go to give you real Star Trek.
No, there was. That's what I'm saying. So after they did this, they could have done real Star Trek with this new cast.
Oh, you
But
mean
they
all of a
didn't.
sudden the spaceship has a consistent size and space actually matters and it takes time to get places?
Absolutely.
And you can't use the transporter halfway across the galaxy? Well, they
Absolutely.
already broke all those rules. So how do they explain when they put them back into place?
It's called imagination. They probably will explain, but they didn't do that though, did they? They decided to copy, Wrath of Khan and turn it into a joke.
Yeah.
And don't even talk to me about the one with the music and all those things following the music.
Beastie
in the last-
Boys, yeah,
what a load of
awful.
rubbish. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
didn't do that.
and again, when you talk about Into Darkness and you have that scene in it with Kirk and you have Spock and it's reversed and they're trying to be clever with it, and it's I've got to be honest, when you compare that to Nimoy and Shatner, and this is what always annoys me, Shatner always got criticized for not being a great actor. That scene between the two of them is phenomenal, and Pine is Chris Pine, isn't it, and Zachary Quinto, they're not even in the same league when they do that. It just felt flat for me.
Absolutely.
Shatner's a fine actor. What people are remembering are not Shatner. They're remembering people making fun of Shatner and attributing those caricatures to his actual performance. But the boomerang. I just no, man. It's
but the JJ movies, they set off a chain of events that led into Discovery onwards, because they went they destroyed Romulus, they destroyed Vulcan, and that led to those series basically coming to be. And then you effectively then had, you had Star Trek Picard seasons where they actually backed into a corner. I hated those first two seasons of Picard, but they're backed into a corner of saying about they have to actually acknowledge the fact that, the Romulan Empire that a lot of their planets were wiped out because of what happened in that movie. So
different timeline.
I remember what I was gonna say. I have to give them credit for one thing. I never thought in a million years they would be able to have 3 product placements in a movie from the 23rd century. They had, what was it? Nokia, Jaguar, something like
Apple.
I have to say, you know what? I'm a little, you know, so.
But that's the thing, right? I don't know if you guys agree, right? The things they get wrong in that movie is, why didn't they just have the design of what this, you know, the bridge looked like in the 60s? Because have you guys seen this video? Okay, somebody went in and took a clip from the 60s and they extended the set, but it looked the same. Have you seen that clip, Z? I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't.
So it's on YouTube and it looks brilliant. and it still keeps the aesthetic of the 60s set. That's what they should have done in this. But no, they decided to make it like an Apple store. Do you know what I
mean? I have the answer. JJ wanted a hot rod for the ship, and he wanted specifically, that's what he said. He wanted the bridge to look like an Apple store. But, you know, Moreland's
and again, that's what I mean. You know, when you look at the outside of the ships as well in the JJ verse, they're all shiny and look brand new. Whereas I love the fact, you know, you look at Wrath of Khan and you look at, you know, when you come across the Defiant looks battered from its use in space. It looks worn. That's what I love about Star Trek, and it was really great. And what Ian said there about Apple Store is absolutely right, because it reminds me of kind of Star Wars prequels where it was shiny white, the ships are flash and brand new. It's funny as a fan, you know, there are things that irk you, and that was one of them for me in particular.
But even if the design was used, it was bulgy in the wrong places. It wasn't functional because he was using a 1960s automobile as the model for a 23rd century spaceship. That's what happens when you give a property to a hack. I mean, we don't no original ideas whatsoever.
I don't want to stay on Star Trek, but the thing that really peeved me off is, do you remember the very first scene where the guy says polarize the screen? Why would you need to do that? Why? Why?
Because he's got a JJ Lens flare on the way.
Like, wouldn't the screen be polarized anyway?
No, they're talking about polarizing the energy shields in order to prevent
shit. Shouldn't even have that.
But
Mr.
that's
Sulu, apply the cat filter.
These hacks are nowhere near clever enough to build a time travel story. So already, if Spock's going back in time, why don't you just go back in time to warn the freaking Romulans? Why do you go back on this Captain Ahab mission of insane revenge?
That story didn't make any sense.
Once you give idiots time travel, it's over. It's like the multiverse. You've lost all stakes and all sense of coherence.
It made no sense. You're right.
And without a story, I don't care how exciting it is. It's just an amusement ride. It's not a movie anymore.
Well, that's the thing. I liked the amusement ride. I enjoyed myself.
I don't usually get this revved up. Sorry.
But I think also from that, you know, it's established, and you see the shows like Discovery and Strange New Worlds that came after it, that you're in an era now where you don't have the caliber of the writers like you used to have, where they respect the lore, they respect, right, this is a sci-fi show, this is not a science fantasy show or movie, we're going to respect it as a sci-fi show. And they start doing the groundwork and making sure that they're nailed on with the lore of the history of the show, but also they're writing it to make sure it makes sense. I will always forgive a production team if they do a show or a movie and they're trying hard to make it work, and there's a few slip-ups along the way. I'll give you a pass on that. But when you look at things like Kurtzman and what he does, there's no attempt to even make sure that it lines up. It is just lazy.
Belongs in prison.
And that's one of the problems with writers today, is they have no lived experiences. The people who wrote all the classic series, you know, classic Doctor Who, Star Trek, even a lot of the Owen Allen stuff, they've all had long lives and been in the military and seen service, and they've got stories to tell. But now you're getting people like Juno Dawson coming into Doctor Who, who's only been selected for a tick box.
Well, you're right, Zeke. Sorry, Ista, you go for it.
Okay, I was going to say what's really painful about this is if you took the sensibilities JJ brought to this movie and put it into Star Wars, the first Star Wars sequel would have been good. But we had another 6 years of wokeification before he got to it. But this kind of slop in Star Trek was exactly the energy that Star Wars needed. But by the time they got there, it was all, self-inserts and Stunning the Brave.
Kathleen Kennedy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
She destroyed it. She
and it was
boy's brain into a girl's brain.
And interestingly, what is it? She's come out and said this week that they need to move away from the Skywalker saga. It doesn't need to be tied to that. And it's like, well, yeah, thanks for finally getting there. But maybe if you'd actually just call this a crazy idea. Maybe if you just adapted some of the expanded universe novels, that would have given you quite a safe start into your Star Wars era.
Ian's right. Sorry. No, I just realized they think brands can be trans. That's why they're trying to turn a boy brand into a girl brand. They're brand transing.
Yeah. Well, you saw that, didn't you? With who just before it was ending, they announced a Shooty Gatwa Barbie doll. And it's like you can't even sell the crappy, pin badges that you're making for merchandise now. So who the hell is ever going to buy a Barbie doll of Shooty Gatwa?
Let's not go back to Doctor Who. Let's move on, shall we? I'm just tired of
just before we get off the subject. I just want to say that the Shooty Gatwa and Millie Gibson figures that have been on Character Options site for 2 years are still there. Nobody is buying your crap.
A very interesting point, because they've just actually released the David Tennant and the Star Beasts set, haven't they, as well?
But technically, Beep the Meep is a classic Doctor Who character.
Yeah,
Tom Baker.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people are invested in that. A lot of people also missed out on the regeneration set with the 14th Doctor in. So this is the only other time you're going to get a 14th Doctor. And this is the only set that has been given 2 exclusive extras. So you've got the Nobody People arms. Somebody sculpted those. I've downloaded the file for that. And you can get a Beat to Meet pod that you can 3D print. And it's got the sticker sheets with it and everything. So it's the first release they've ever done, which has been massively expandable. So I'm not surprised it's almost sold out.
Luckily, in the US, these had solved a huge problem by setting up a supply chain that goes directly into the landfill without actually going through their stores, so they can deal with the overflow of Disney merchandise for Marvel and Doctor Who.
Well, can we not talk about Doctor anymore, please? Seriously.
All right, then. I promise.
Are you getting a rash, Ian? Are you getting a rash?
I just think that we should never pay any attention to it anymore. It's just let them, again, whoever wants it, they can have it now.
Is it shooting?
Yeah. We care about shooting, right, mate?
Shooty's an idiot. They're all idiots.
So are either of you going to watch or this weekend or in the week, are you going to watch 28 Years Later?
I was going to see it today, but I didn't have time.
I haven't watched the other 2.
I don't think you need to.
I was going to see it, and then I saw the reviews, and I'm going to hold back a little bit.
Is it not good then, the reviews?
No.
Is that
mixed?
Yeah, mixed, but in a way, if you listen to the review, even the good ones, it's just not for me.
Well, Danny Boyle did an interview with sorry, Iste, I'm just saying he did an interview with Sky News today or yesterday.
Yeah,
and
rubbish.
He's basically saying it's an allegory for Brexit. Because effectively the UK is effectively sealed off from Europe in the movie, because of what's gone on. So again, we're at a point in history now where you just want people who are producing and people directing and people who are acting in these films to just keep to the script or say the right thing because it works in their favor that they make money if they say the right things, but they can't help themselves.
He also apologized for making Slumdog Millionaire. What?
Because he's not Indian. Yeah, he's an idiot. That's Slumdog was a good movie.
I don't see him giving the Oscar back, though. Come on.
In relation to that,
if you're going to virtue signal, go hard.
I just want to read a Twitter post by the Little Platoon, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Mr. Boyle is, of course, free to donate all his royalties to Indian film schools and remove his name from the credits of any re-release, or publicly petition studios and streaming services not to play the movie ever again. While we're at it, he's not Scottish, so we should probably apologise for train spotting, nor is he American or Thai, so there goes this beach. He wasn't born in London, so he had no business shooting 28 days later there, and being entirely unrelated to Steve Jobs, I don't know why he made a movie about him. And if we really want to press the point, the nation of India shouldn't be allowed to play cricket, much less win at it. That's culturally insensitive.
Okay.
It's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy.
I just want to say everyone's talking about this movie being made with iPhones.
Yeah.
But that's not really true. Yes, it's an iPhone, but they're attached to $70,000 cinematic lens to the front. The video processing is not happening on the phone. It's going out to an external video processor, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Plus, they have the depth of field adapters, camera rigs, follow focus. So by the time you see what there is, it's only using the optical sensor of the iPhone, which is essentially the same as other cameras. So, I mean, just when you say, it's an iPhone, but not really, it's a $379,000 iPhone. Yeah. It's like saying that your Camaro is the same as they're driving in NASCAR. They both say Camaro, but
it makes no sense shooting in an iPhone. They might as well just shut it on a Red or something, or
it looks like a Red when you see the whole rig set up. It's just bulky.
Because I'm saying it's just for publicity purposes, I reckon. Plus, Apple might have given them a lot of money to shoot it.
At least some free iPhones.
Yeah, exactly. So we know what's going on there.
Now, doing the bullet time on iPhones actually makes sense since they can set up control mechanisms for all the phones. But, that's just like a single special effects shot that would be composited in. But yeah, people think, I'm going to go make my iPhone and do 28 decades later because, I have a phone. Like, I'm all for people trying.
Yeah, you can make a film in an iPhone. You can definitely do it. I mean, if you've got one of those lenses and stuff, stick it on there, and you can.
Yeah.
So
I got one. It'll only cost you $16 a month at a certain website.
Right. So we move on to something else. Come on, let's move on to something else. Jeez.
Moving on.
Yeah. So polar bear furry action.
Yeah. So I was going to say, I've got something that's turning up in the next couple of days. It's been dispatched from what I've been told early, which is I ordered Lethal Weapon on 4K in a steelbook.
I know.
So that's being released. So I'm looking forward to that at the moment. And I was going to ask you guys, are any of you picking up the Sean Connery 4K collection that's out in, I think, a week's time?
I don't know. I didn't know it was out.
Yeah, it was about a week's time. Yeah, there were two versions of it. There's a limited edition version in like a tin, similar to the one they did for Superman a few years ago. And then there's a standard one, but the artwork for the cases looks better in the limited edition version.
The price is quite reasonable. It's around $100. I don't know what that is in English money, but
yes, it's around about £100 here, I think.
Do you guys remember when they did release all the James Bond films on DVD? And do you remember when they released all the James Bond films on VHS?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? It was like this big bulky thing.
I still have the White Album on 8-track, okay?
Oh, really? Oh, 8-track, man. That's going back. 8-track? Jeez.
The thing is, before I buy any 4K, I want to see how it's mastered because so many of these are just done so terribly. But Oh, here's a shot at the best 4K remaster I've ever seen is Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It is unbelievably.
It is.
But they corrected some scenes and then didn't take the matte shots out of the what is it, the
matte lines,
the
the
external
matte lines. Yeah,
well,
just like sitting there going, why didn't they do that? If they wanted to, they corrected the Enterprise, right? They took the matte lines out of the Enterprise when the thing was going around it, and then you see the Klingon ships, and it's got it on. You're like, why
it's still
you're gonna climb a mountain? Bloody climb all the way up. Do you know what I mean? Don't climb halfway through. God's sake.
Yeah, it's like the virtue signaling. Give your Oscar back, but it's still bloody gorgeous, and it's one of the best I've seen. It retains the film grain, but it's incredibly smooth and vibrant. And God, I made the mistake of buying Aliens in 4K, and it looks like it's AI. It's
do you know what? Right,
gross.
I always tell this story. Okay, right. When I was a kid, right, which was a very long time ago. When I was a kid, I was in school, and I had a bunch of friends that was into what I was.
Hang on a
into.
minute. When you were a kid, you were in school.
Secondary school, right? And I had four of my friends that was into films like me. Everybody else was into clothes and learning how to drive and all that shit and football. But I had this small clique. And when we heard that Douglas Trumbull and John Dykester was doing Star Trek, we almost lost our minds. We lost our minds. We were like, these two powers, we've got to go and see this film. We've got to go and see it. When we see it, we were so bored with the film. We're sitting there going, this is Star Trek. Do you know what I mean? But the special effects are amazing. Absolutely amazing.
I see. Okay, that's why you like 2009. I wasn't bored for a second. That was an amazing movie, completely faithful to the spirit and characters of Star Trek. It was bloody brilliant,
and it still terrified me as a kid.
Times in a row,
yeah. But
that
as
motion picture with the guitar sounds, as you know.
Oh, you mean
especially that
Klingons?
beginning bit with the beginning bit with the Klingons scared me as a kid.
Jerry Goldsmith.
You know, so good.
I can also watch. I can watch 2001 all day long and not be bored.
Oh no, I can't.
I can't get through it. I've never been able to get through it.
I've seen it all. But I'll never watch that film again. I was so bored. But again, I would say as a kid, when you watch Star Trek, you don't get it, but you appreciate as you get older. I mean, I've watched Star Trek and I think it's a good film. I don't think it's one of the best, but I think it's a really good movie to watch. The only things that spoil it is William Shatner's acting. That really does spoil it from time to time, and some of the dodgy effects. But apart from that, I really liked it, and it's very slow. That's what spoils it as well. But that's just me, obviously. So
I understand it's not for everybody, but if you get into the right, I don't know. I guess I get into the headspace of loving these things.
I still adore
I'm
it.
just completely entranced.
I still adore motion picture. I really do. I mean, Rafa Khan obviously speaks for itself of how great that movie is, but motion picture, there's some wonderful bits in motion picture, and the characterization and the interplay between them, the characters, some of that's really nice in that film.
I also love the first Terminator and Highlander, so it's not like I like them all slow.
When they did that thing where Scotty shows them around the Enterprise, that was Doug Trumbull's idea. Doug Trumbull, that wasn't even in the script. Doug Trumbull went to the producers and went to the director, and he said, look, I've got this idea, because he was very inspired by 2001. And he says, can we just do a 2001 where we literally see the beauty of the Enterprise? And they said, well, if you can do it within the time that we got, do it. And he did. And his idea was to paint the saucer thing with like scales. And then the ship would light itself. That was his idea and stuff like that. And it's a pretty amazing scene. It's a really good scene.
Well,
you know why that works? It's the soundtrack. Same with 2001.
Fantastic.
It's the music that makes that work.
Well, it's interesting with Star Trek Enterprise. When they did the pilot, they riffed off of that in the motion picture, where they had Archer and Trip in the shuttle going around the NX-01 doing a similar thing. So it just shows how iconic that scene is.
Underrated, that show. It's so
that
underrated.
That one looks like a brewery too.
Yeah.
I loved it. When I first saw, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say Enterprise, for all its faults, will be more fondly remembered than Strange New Worlds or Discovery ever will
Oh,
be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just don't know what what the obsession with gantries and catwalks and
it was one of the first starships.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was.
And I will still maintain that of all the sequel Star Trek series, that pilot for Enterprise is the best. Broken Bow. I love that introduction to that universe. That the two-parter. Where they're taking that Klingon back, and you've got Sulaban and everything. Really well done. I like it. I never get tired of that one.
I think when I first saw it, I was a bit apprehensive about it, but then I left the series. I think I saw like halfway through season 1, and I left it. And then years later, when everything was all said and done and it was all gone, I went back to it and I realized it is good. It's a good show. I like Trip. I like T'Pau. Like those characters,
yeah,
really good.
Yeah, they needed a decontamination scene in every episode.
Yeah. But
damn, they came close a couple of times.
They did, yeah.
And do you know what you're talking about earlier about tech in the movies and making it look similar? What I really liked about Enterprise, is they thought about it and they tried to make it, the new version of what was done in the 60s, but they still had, the viewer that Spock had to look through, and they did all of that. So they thought about it, and they just don't do that now. It's like, it's just stupidity now with what they come up with. But I was also going to say to you guys, did you see the Naked Gun trailer this week?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And for me, I'm just going to come out and say it looks terrible.
Really? Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, don't like it. Don't like it at all.
All right.
I think they're missing the entire tone of the original. They're copying the sense of humor without understanding what made that work. I think they're just going to regurgitate the gags, and it's not. Listen, it only works because Leslie Nielsen is playing it straight, and everyone around him is, and that's not what's happening here.
I don't know. I laughed when I saw the trailer. I thought it was very stupid and very silly. Whether they can maintain that, consistently in the film is another matter. But we'll see anyway. We'll
is
see.
That Pamela Anderson in there?
Yes, it is.
She's supposed to take. She's supposed to be Priscilla Presley. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is what's his name? Is it Seth? What's his name?
MacFarlane.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks okay. I'm prepared to give it a shot. Spaceballs 2, on the other hand, I think I'm going to steer well clear of.
But you know what? The only person that's in Spaceballs 2 is Rick Moranis. Nobody else is
amazing.
Back.
That
they got him.
Surprised by that. I unbelievable that he's coming back to it. I mean, that's a bigger coup than Mel Brooks doing.
Well, then he missed Ghostbusters, so
problems with family, didn't he?
I think dude, Liam Neeson, he's got the chops. He can be funny. Did you see that spot in the it's a Short Life, or the Warwick Davis show that Ricky
Willow.
Yeah. He has a scene in that where he's doing comedy and he's playing it straight, and it killed me, man. He cracked me up. I have faith that Liam Neeson can do comedy for sure, but I guess we'll see. I'll give it a chance.
Yeah, and again, as Z was saying about moving on to Spaceballs, for me, it's too far gone now. This should have been within 10 years of the first one.
Yeah.
And again, for me, I kind of feel, they're late to the party with
very late,
and taking the mick out of Star Wars, because we're all doing it now every day anyway. So
the best way to have done that would have released it immediately after Rise of Skywalker. Just take the piss out of the entire sequel trilogy.
Spaceballs,
exactly.
Spaceballs riffed on the science fiction genre in general. So what movies is this one going to be ripping off of? They're already sort of satires of themselves.
Well, they did speak to Mel Brooks, and Mel Brooks actually said that we're ripping off the science fiction of today, like the what is it, the Star Wars, the Kathleen Kennedy Star Wars. He said all that. He said they're going to be doing that mostly.
Yeah, but that stuff's so bad. How do you make?
I know.
Itself?
I know, but it's going to be. Look, you know what? I liked the first. You know, a lot of people don't like Mel Brooks, but I think Mel Brooks is quite funny, and I liked. Yeah. No matter how stupid Spaceballs was, it just made me laugh out loud because it was that stupid. You know, there were certain bits in it that weren't stupid, but Rick Moranis cracked me up as was it Dark Helmet? He was. I thought he was funny.
Yeah, it's great.
So anyway,
I mean, it was just that. It was just at the right time in the 80s, you know, because you had what's his name from the Police Academy movies is just like an underling, you know, and he was doing his voices.
Oh yeah.
Rick Moranis playing with his dolls in his room, funny, you know, superb stuff. But again, you know, the fun thing that concerns me about it as well is the guy that's heavily involved in his producing it as well is Josh Gad.
Yes.
Yeah,
Josh Gad is a big red flag for me because you know he certainly likes to push a certain message. So if it was Mel Brooks unleashed, then I could think okay, but you know I also think to myself, right, what message is going to be pushed in this? What are they going to lampoon in it, and what is not?
Well, Mel Brooks is just lending his name. It's just his name to the thing. You know, he's not really writing it.
He'll be in it for 5 minutes.
He's like 90, 100 years old. But here's the thing. It will be interesting to see. Listen, we live in a world that is already more absurd than the satire we used to make of it. We've got guys with dicks competing in women's sports. Absolutely. Like, so if you're going to make a satire of that, where do you? I already read the news and think I'm reading the Babylon Bee. So I'm not sure where you go from here when the world is already insane beyond the level of satire.
I think Mel Brooks is when he was in his prime, he was a genius. He some of the
Young Frankenstein, Silver Street,
some of the stuff he
the
came
producers.
Up with. Absolutely. I mean, I can think
even Blazing Saddles the other day.
Blazing Saddles.
High Anxiety.
High Anxiety is fantastic. I remember that there's a sequence. I think it was in High Anxiety, a sequence when he was copying Hitchcock, where they were looking under the table of a glass where two people were talking, and they kept pushing the coffee, what is it, cup, so that they would be blocking the area in the camera to keep moving. And I think that's genius comedy. I think he's a genius when it comes to comedy, but I think he's lost it now. When he was in his prime, he really invented some really good sketches in his movies, you know. But anyway,
I don't think that people are going to be overly receptive to it at all. No. You know, it's
Josh Gad is just awful. Like I can't even. Yeah.
I mean, this is how stupid, right? High Anxiety. Okay, there's a sequence in it, right, where he goes to this hotel. And he asked this guy, can I get the morning newspaper? And the guy says, yeah, okay. And then he sees the guy again and he goes, can I get the morning newspaper? And he goes, oh, right. And then he sees the guy again and he goes, can I have the morning newspaper? And he goes, look, I heard you the first time. I'll get you a newspaper. And then at that scene, it was having a shower. And then the guy comes in and he starts stabbing him with a newspaper. Here's your newspaper. Just like Psycho. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, he was really good at writing stuff like that. I just thought it was absolutely hilarious, you know. And he's on the floor and you see the ink of the newspaper going down the drain and stuff like that. And the last line is that guy's not getting a tip, isn't it? When he's on the ground like that.
Yeah.
So it's really funny. Anyway,
I digress. No, it's fine. And I think because, you know, that was the whole era for me as a kid as well. You know, I was growing up with, Gene Wilder movies as well, you know, and he was great. And, you know, those two worked together very, very well. And
didn't Gene Wilder have writing credits on a lot of the...
He did, Young Frankenstein was his idea. Yeah.
It's one of those things where it was the magical partnership that rose everybody up past a level they were capable of going themselves.
I watched I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but I watched the Gene Wilder documentary weeks ago, which is really good, very sad. And but they were talking about Young Frankenstein, and they were saying that the only time Mel Brooks was saying the only time they ever had a real argument was where Gene Wilder was talking about a particular scene in Young Frankenstein, and in the end he allowed him to do it. And then he actually admitted to him afterwards. He goes, no, you were right on it. It absolutely works.
Yeah.
And those two just had such a great collaboration. But again, you're talking about wonderful times for movies with that kind of comedy. You know, it's like I've got lined up this weekend to watch See No Evil, Hear No Evil. I haven't
That's
watched
all
for a
right,
while.
yeah. But
you
that's
know,
that's
and-
another great partnership. It was Gene Wilder
Yeah.
and Richard Pryor. And you know what? There's this really touching thing that Gene Wilder said about Richard Pryor. He said on the day off of See No Evil, Hear No Evil, they decided to go to a museum. Gene Wilder said to Richard Pryor, let's go to a museum. You know, I know this museum and you really love it. So they get into a car and they had the assistant with them. And she kept talking while they were in the car, and Richard Pryor was a bit pissed off. And then when they were coming out the car and she walked ahead, Gene Wilder said to Richard Pryor, what's wrong? You know, why are you pissed off? And he said, because she's infringing on our time. He said to him, you know, this is just for me and you, and she's infringing on our time. And Gene Wilder knew at that moment that he loved him. He thought Richard Pryor, you know, him and Richard Pryor had this thing that was, you know, that they connect very well, even off screen. You know, because he was very rude, you know, and stuff like that. And he had the drugs and almost set himself on fire and all that nonsense. But with all that stuff, they were still really great friends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I thought it was quite touching.
It was also as well at the time when they were doing that film. I think it was when Richard Pryor's illness was starting to manifest and he was forgetting a lot of his lines.
Yeah.
And that show speaks about the friendship between the two, because Gene Wilder would step in and help him.
Yeah.
And they had a great bond. And again, you know, those, when you talk about those sort of movies, those comedies, they're kind of gone now, aren't they? And I wish I would see films like that again. You know, it's just a great time to grow up for me.
It's a different kind of comedy, though, isn't it, guys? Don't you think? The comedy of the 80s and the 90s, it's very different to what people think is funny now. I mean, I think today with the great comedians, I think the comedy is wrapped up with intelligence. You know, with some of the, like, for instance, Ricky Gervais would say talk about certain things, but it would be wrapped up with intelligence, if you know what I mean. But in the old days, it was Chevy Chase and it was, you know, Bill Murray, and their kind of humor was very branded, wasn't it? They knew exactly what to say. You know what I mean. So it's very different.
And I think you're right, but I think, you know, with the comedy, I mean, you talk also things like, you know, we grew up, and this is where I go back to Naked Gun, because we grew up, you know, you had the Zucker films, you know, and Airplane and all of that, and they were brilliant, you know, great lampoon, great stuff they did, but they're now trying to bring that back in an era where I'm not sure that's going to be receptive. You know, it's just because you can't say anything now without someone objecting to it, you know. Whereas I think at that point in the 80s, pretty much people just they had a sense of humor and they enjoyed themselves to have a laugh and a joke. You know, they didn't think too deeply into it.
But seriously, guys, you know, the times have changed and everything's moving forward, and it, you know, the entertainment that we had in our day, it's disappearing. Right, we could still hanker for Doctor Who or James Bond or whatever, but it's all coming to a crashing halt, isn't it? Because people don't know what to do. But you know, I'm glad that I lived in the era of the 80s and the 90s. I don't know what you guys think, because I think that was the height of entertainment. Now I don't even know who's popular in music. Taylor Swift? Is it Taylor Swift? I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
There's no such thing as music anymore. It's dead.
Yeah.
I got to that point. I've got to that point, guys, in my life now where, you know, when you're growing up and you see like your grandparents or your parents and they're suddenly listening to, you know, classic gold or something like that on the radio station. And you're like, why are you listening to that? Why aren't you listening to the trendy stuff?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm now doing exactly what they're doing, because, you know, the stuff that's on the main stuff now is just complete nonsense, or it's just,
it absolutely
is
in
a studio, and it's just, you know, it's
you
know,
manufactured.
Yeah.
Tuning into classic FM and Radio 2 to hear 80s and 90s hits. It's ridiculous.
There's no music. There's that music of today is, I mean, I think Ed Sheeran's the only one that's doing new stuff, but everything's just grounded to a halt, isn't it? You know what I mean? Do you remember in the old days you used to buy an album and it used to be a record, and you used to have the double album, you open it and then, you know, you get to the artwork, and All that's gone,
Yep.
man. It's all
I-
gone.
I used to sit holding Santana Abraxas, and I could get lost in that album cover for hours. Just
I was only saying to Ian yesterday because it popped up and surprised me, which I'm gonna order it. Is I think it's I forget the name of the company. I'll have to send you guys a link, but the original Superman the movie.
Oh yeah, I
soundtrack,
got it. I got it. Up there.
Ian's got it, but they're
Yeah.
re-releasing it in a limited edition set with a booklet and everything.
Mm.
So I want to get hold of that. You know, I'm really looking forward to getting that. But I was going to ask you guys as well. Can you remember the last movie soundtrack in the last sort of 10, 15 years that you purchased? You know, I haven't in the last 10, 15 years, you know, and I used to get so many.
The Black Hole.
Oh, that was
John Barry. Like, yeah,
I've got that as well. I mean,
yeah, that's fantastic.
What I mean, look, I've got 2 Empire Strikes Back. I don't know why I brought them. They're the same, I think. So I've got 2. I've got this, 2. Oh no, I've got Star. No, they are. Yeah, they're both Empire Strikes Back. They're both Empire Strikes Back. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know.
I've got a couple of soundtracks that are like music songs, but as far as film scores, I don't know. Like Chariots of Fire is the last one I got.
Right. I love
Blade
Runner. Blade Runner. I've got that as well somewhere. I even got the last Star Wars.
You know, that's the one thing Marvel was always sorely lacking was any really anthemic soundtrack. Like, can you imagine if Marvel's had a John Williams like soundtrack with several people? They just have that one dun 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 dun. It's just like an 8-bar phrase of nothing.
I got to admit, I got the soundtracks to the last 3 Star Wars films because I love John Williams so much. I got them there somewhere. I always hide them in the back just in case.
You secretly listen to Ray's theme.
I couldn't even recall. I couldn't even recall those if I wanted to. Like
I can. John Williams is brilliant. He knows exactly what he's doing. In fact, right. I love John Williams so much. He even got the Home Alone soundtrack here because John done that one as well. Yeah, he done that one.
I mean, that is one of my criticisms of the new Superman movie is why they didn't just stick with the John Williams score for Superman. It's iconic. They've
don't like the new it for modern audiences.
Yeah, that's right. Modern audiences,
and it just doesn't. It's just nowhere near as good, is it? You know, it's just that. As soon as you watch that movie, it just bangs at you straight away.
Shall we talk about Superman because we're running out of time here? Shall we talk about Superman?
We've kind of talked a little bit about it. But
did we?
Superman,
did I miss it?
No, I have your answer. Tron Legacy. That's the last one.
Yeah,
Tron Legacy.
Yeah. Daft Punk.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, Superman. Okay, let's talk briefly about Superman then. So Superman, as I said to you, I'm still looking forward to it. I know from again, this is the Hollywood Reporter, okay, and their projections for Superman, I think they've downgraded it now.
They have, it's dropped
135 million. Because what was it, Z? Was it about 180 they projected originally? It's something like that.
It was going to be something like that. Yeah, they were looking for an absolutely storming opening weekend.
Yeah,
but I think with Jurassic World and Fantastic Four, it's going to be a bit of a tough struggle at the box office for anybody.
But this is the same number as they're tracking for Fantastic Four, and we know tickets are selling madly more than Fantastic. So one of those numbers is wrong.
It's weird that the Fantastic Four managed to crash the ticketing website, yet James Gunn's Superman didn't.
Yeah, it was one theater's website on a Tuesday between 2 and 3 p.m. Where somebody spilled popcorn into the CPU.
And interestingly,
it's like how Disney makes it's the top rated show on a Tuesday night ending in Y.
I'm still sticking to it. I think that Superman is going to do conservatively. I think it's going to do 180. I reckon it could do 200 because I think it's going to be a family movie that's going to hit if the marketing stays on point and if they push it a lot more. Because the other thing I was going to say to you, when you've got Fantastic Four and you've got Superman, you know, we don't get it in the US, UK, Z and Ian, but you know, I've had people, you know, like Brian on the podcast, he was showing me that, you know, the popcorn buckets you get in the US.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and there's quite a few options for Superman. There's none from what I've seen of Fantastic Four.
There's an $80
Galactus
head. It's $80.
Oh, well, I corrected then. So
and also a Herbie one that's also ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, I'm not buying that crap.
The Herbie
Even
one
if it was over here.
That's crazy.
The Herbie one's like a meal caddy where there's like space for food, and then his arm holds a drink and does a whole. It's ridiculous. Like, but the money.
Yeah.
I would have to come home and beat the crap out of myself if I spent $80 on a Galactus popcorn bucket.
Yeah. Oh, I've just seen it. Yeah, it does look beautiful. But yeah,
it looks like real Galactus, which is
I do like James Gunn, and I really hope for his sake and for Warner Brothers' sake, because I like Warner Brothers as well. They've made some amazing films, that it does, you know, make its budget back. But I can't see it being a runaway success. I can't see it being a blockbuster like, you know, the likes of Gremlins or E.T. or whatever, because it costs so much money to make. Right? I think what they should take away from this is to just have a decent budget. Don't go like, what is wrong with you people? You know, you can still make a good film.
Every aspect of this movie, James Gunn has seemingly been unable to get out of his own way. And if that carries on, if that carries on to the film, then it won't be so good. But let's say he used it all up for the film, so that's all good. Just everywhere else, he's a mess. It could be surprised. Like I want it to be good.
My biggest concern about this film is going to end up being too James Gunn formulaic. It's going to be like Peacemaker. It's going to be like Suicide Squad. It's going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just going to be quippy interactions in a group setting. It's just going to seem like everything else that he's done.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. James Gunn has seemingly more been unable to adapt himself to DC, and rather he has adapted DC to his self. But that may be why they hired him. I don't know.
Well, that's why his name is plastered before Superman on everything.
Yeah. Superman's James Gunn.
The thing that really
is insufferable. The
thing that really bothers me though is Superman's character. I'll always say this, right? From the clips I've seen, he just doesn't come across as Superman. Like the bit where he gets really angry with Lois Lane. It's like Superman's never like. Well, the Superman I know is never like that. Superman's level-headed. Do you know what I mean? You know. I'm obviously talking about the Chris Reeve version. You know, Superman isn't someone that just to fly off the handle because he knows he has the power to freaking, you know, smash a head in if he wants to. Do you know?
Well,
he's got to be controlled, isn't he? He's got to be.
Knowing that interview scene lasts 10 minutes is a little bit distressing. I don't want to sit through 10 minutes of. Yeah, I don't want to sit through 10 minutes of that crap. I'm already tired of the clip.
Yeah, and I think obviously they said as well that, or James Gunn has said that, you know, meta-humans have been around for sort of 200 to 300 years.
Yeah.
So this universe is filled with them. This Earth is filled with them. So the only thing that, you know, we have in modern times, which I hope doesn't happen here, is the fact that you're trying to squeeze so many different elements in to set up your universe that the actual story for the Superman movie fades away quite quickly. And that's one of my concerns for it. Like I said to you, I'm still looking forward to it. And I really hope it does well because, you know, I really want a good Superman movie.
Everything that I've seen, right? Because like I was listening to NFT and other YouTubers, and they were saying, oh, you know, Nicholas Hoult, he's seen really good stuff in the trailer. I'm like, were you listening to what he was saying? He was like a twirly moustache villain. I'm going to kill your family, you know, make sure that, but you know, all that rubbish. Just like Lex Luthor's not like that in the comics. Lex Luthor is far more intelligent to actually say
steps
things
ahead.
like that. Do you know what I mean? The Lex Luthor I know that I read in the comics, he was the prime minister. Sorry, he was the president at one point, wasn't he? In the comics, you know, and that's the kind of Lex Luthor we should have in this. We should have a young fella, even though he's not young, he does look young, playing Lex Luthor. We should have a man playing Lex Luthor, someone that looks learned, someone that when you look at him, you don't know where he's coming from. That's the kind of Lex Luthor we should have. People saying things like, oh, you know, Nicholas Hoult is knocking it out of the park as Lex Luthor. We'll see, right? Whether he's a twirly moustache Lex Luthor or he's an intelligent person that beats Superman by using intelligence. We'll see.
I also want to see Lois Lane being a reporter, not flying a spaceship and fighting bad guys and swaggering around the office like a dude in her boots. And like, that's the one thing that really sort of red flags me, is that, you know, they're just going after the Lois Lane girl boss. Now, she's a phenomenal reporter. That's where her strengths are. But they have to make sure that we know, you know, she can also fly spaceships and punch bad guys and stands toe to toe. She's the real hero. Superman's just the boyfriend.
I was watching one of the animated movies that I love yesterday, and I watched the documentaries on it. And the comic book writers in there, they were saying, you know, the relationship you have with Superman / Clark Kent and Lois Lane, the reason it works so well as well is because Lois is always out there as a journalist, risking herself. She's putting herself in danger to try and get that great story. And then you have Superman that comes in to rescue her, you know, because she gets herself put into stupid positions in the comic books, you know, and I do hope we see that element of it, you know, where, you know, she leaps before she looks. But you're right. I don't think we'll get that. I
also,
just
running a newspaper's changed so much today. You know, I don't know how they're going to do that. I mean, mostly people getting the news from YouTube, and you know what I mean. So the idea of actually having the Daily Planet working the way it's working is, I don't know. I guess the Times is still going, isn't it, in the States? So, but I don't know how it works now because of all this new technology. Will the office be that full? It
was like the phone booth joke in the original Superman, where he goes and they didn't even have phone booths back then.
No, so that's what I'm saying. I don't know how it's going to work.
And there's two other things, you know, that are which I'm not happy with. You know, one is, you know, supposedly that they've altered truth, justice in the American way to truth, justice in the human way. You know,
they need to just drop it if they're not gonna say it right.
Exactly. I'm a Brit, you know, and I grew up loving this character, loving the Reeve movies, and funnily enough, hearing him say truth, justice in the American way didn't bother me when I was growing up as a kid. It's like, it's Superman is American, like, you know, to say like apple pie, you know, in the USA, you know, those sort of comments.
The
Superman
problem
is an American citizen, you know. It's
but the woke are ashamed of America. They're ashamed to be Americans. That's the problem. So, like, if you're not going to say it right, don't say it at all.
But again, you know, I saw someone online, and I agree with what they said. They said, but the human way, you know, if you look at humanity, we haven't exactly got the greatest track record.
We're not exactly the sterling example of what goodness is.
Which humans? German mustache guy, Pol Pot. You know, they're the humans. Like, or you know, just.
Other things bother me in the trailer as well. Is like that sequence where he's spinning around and he's using his heat vision to kill all the things around him. That looks so cartoonish. I hope they've redone that effect. I don't know.
Humanity is a mess, and Superman, like America, was supposed to be aspirational, something we could look like to better ourselves. But in pure woke fashion, where all women are born perfect and only become more perfect as they grow up, it's the human way. Humans are all perfect. You know,
Superman was created by 2 Jewish people.
Yeah.
So, and during World War II. So
then the only other concern
so was really Jesus. Jesus was created by at least one Jewish people, possibly 2, depending on what.
And I just don't. I really hope that they don't go with the lazy route of Luthor is Trump. You know, I really hope that's.
You know, those comparisons are going to be made though. Whatever happens, even if they don't make it anything like Trump, the media is going to say that's obviously a Trump analogy.
Yeah, they're going to say, Lois, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me Biden had dementia?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be a reporter.
You're a journalist. Where's your integrity?
Yeah, they're basically they're not going to give us Superman. They're going to give us Gunn's version of Superman. Plus, Gunn is under the control of these people. I like to say these people, and so he's going to be cut a bit. Yeah, and the women are going to be strong in here. I've no problem with that. But when it goes beyond, the point, then that's when I have a problem with it. But we'll see. We'll see, right?
Yeah. You know what? I think if I have any faith in this movie, it's faith in David Corenswet, who is a big, huge nerd, and maybe he'll be able. Yeah, because I do think it's going to be Super Lord, a combination of Star-Lord and
not a nerd. He's not a nerd.
Yeah, he is.
No, he's not.
You seen it?
There's no one. Look, let me tell you something about nerds, right? There's no one that good looking that is a nerd. I'm sorry, that's
Henry Cavill.
Hang on a minute.
Also, I would like to bring myself as a piece of evidence for that, but I don't want to. Yeah, it's true. I'm not that good looking. I'm better looking.
When the real nerds were around, right? These people didn't give a shit about what we liked. That's because it's become popular in the zeitgeist. That's why even Brad Pitt says that he's a nerd. Come on.
Yeah, no, he's not a nerd.
No, Nicolas Cage is definitely a nerd.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Picking up his comic books and chatting to kids while he's at the stool. That's great. I think going back quickly to what you were saying about James Gunn, getting in the way of it. I do have massive worries about this because obviously I haven't watched it yet but I've seen the clips because it's not in the UK. Creature Commandos, and he cameos himself in Creature Commandos animation, and then everywhere you look now, it's James Gunn is front and center in all of this marketing stuff. He's just done another magazine where he's lying on a couch, and it's talking about James Gunn, and it's like, it's like, you need to step back. It's like when I look at the Reeve movies, Donner would do his interviews, but Donner wouldn't be front and center and everything because he knew to sell the movie, he needed to have Christopher Reeve out there in front, pitching it to people with and iconic posters with "You'll believe a man can fly."
He wasn't responsible for any of that, though.
I do want to tell Ian.
Yeah, but he stepped back, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah,
I've been going to Comic-Cons since the 70s, and while there may be not too many good-looking nerds there, particularly there were and always have been some very good-looking people at those conventions.
Look. It's obviously a broad thing
Ian's a handsome folk.
What I'm saying is that it's highly unlikely someone that good-looking would be as geeky and as nerdy as us. That's all I'm saying, right? It's kind of, you use your common sense, for God's sakes. It's only because being a nerd and liking pop culture has actually become very, very popular in the years that's gone by, and that's why people say that. But am I as nerdy as someone like Gary Beekler? No. Not at all. Those are the real nerds, man. They have everything. They have the comics, the models. I'm probably pretty sure that Z has all the stuff as well, and people that make costumes and go on, what is it?
I have costumes.
Exactly. They're nerds. They're real nerds.
There are different varieties of nerd, though. There are film nerds. There are people that are just into visual effects nerds.
Yeah.
But
they all belong to the same club. They all belong to the same club.
Listen, if that was the goal, if Gunn went out there looking for a real nerd, he would be able to find one in the billions of people on the planet. So I don't know. I've listened to his interviews. I've seen how he's behaved. A lot of that is scripted. When it comes to Hollywood, every interview, every article, it's all planned. They're all puff pieces.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I mean, like when you look at a newspaper and they say they've caught a serial killer, and then they show a picture of the serial killer, and you think he looks like a serial killer. when I was growing up, right, you can always spot the nerds and the geeks just by the way they look. Do you know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying, right? When people say they're a geek now, I don't believe it. You know,
even if he's
like a few comics,
even if he's a fake nerd, I think he can fake it well enough that maybe it'll work.
Yes, I don't know. I'm joking.
Ian, look, I get up early in the morning to have my toast with chocolate spread on it and work hard eating it to get this physique as a nerd. All right, so just
you know, as I was saying, you know, it's sometimes you can tell that by looking at them. Do you know what I mean? I've met plenty of it, just like you, Istavo. I used to go to Comic Cons in the 70s and stuff where you can get a signature without cutting your arm off and your leg off for one, you know what I mean? And you could stand there and talk to someone that's been in a movie. I spoke to Melanie, what's her name? The girl that played Dale Arden in Flash Gordon. I remember I had an hour conversation with her. Do you know what I mean? In those days, you could do that because there were real nerds there. Now it's become really popular. You get families there and, you know, and it's not the same in my opinion, but because it used to belong to us. Exclusively
Did you ever meet Neil Adams? He is one of the most famous comic book.
Yes.
That's a good looking dude, man. I mean, I'm
in the 70s, not now.
A handsome fellow. Like, so, you know, I'm just saying it's possible.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right.
I don't know if you guys saw, but I saw that London Film and Comic Con have announced Mel Gibson's going to be there.
Really?
I'm a fan of Mel Gibson, actually. I'm a fan.
Is he are they finally letting him out of jail? And
yeah, it looks like it, doesn't it?
He's been in Hollywood jail for about
but the thing is though, Mel Gibson, right, he fights for what he believes, and you know, and you know, look, he hasn't been perfect, he's made a lot of mistakes, haven't we all though? That's the thing. But one thing for sure is he's a really good director, and I know direction, so he's really good.
He actually is.
He brought Riggs to life, as far as I'm concerned, and I really loved that saga, apart from the last one. So yeah, probs on him.
I would like to say that there are some people that have no business wearing a Wonder Woman costume. I've been doing a little research here, so Ian's not entirely wrong.
I told you not to tell anyone about that, Ista.
Do you know what, right, guys? I kid you not. The last time I was at a Comic Con, right, which was like 3 years, no, must have been 4 or 5 years ago, there was a guy. He was dressed as the Jodie Doctor. I was like, what? Do you know what I mean? It was a guy, man. I was like, what?
Do you believe Olivia Munn is a nerd? Man, she was smoking back in the day.
Yes, she was back in the day. She was, Well, I don't know. Look, you're probably right, but as I said, the ugly people outnumber the very far and few between good-looking nerds.
Hey, I'll be the first to admit they loved Endgame because so many guys who wanted to play Thor finally had a chance to go out there and be Fat Thor. So, it was a dream come true for them because they didn't have a chance with regular Thor. So,
but I know what you mean about. God, sorry, carry on, Ista.
Oh no, I'm just saying, you know, a lot of Fat Thors in Comic-Con that year.
I think also with Comic-Con, you know, with someone, I think it was PD in the chat saying it had all gone corporate, and what Ian was saying as well is true because, you know, now you do get a lot of what I call the OnlyFans models that dress as the characters that they walk.
Oh yeah, they're not nerds.
they're
business. They are business women.
They're trying to get sign up. Yeah.
When I say Comic-Con, I mean generically fandom as a whole, and there's still plenty of taken over conventions that still have the heart and soul of fandom spirit around the country.
But they have boxes now. Like the last time I was there with Shah, I think it was like 3 years ago. And they had boxes around the actors, so you can't even see them. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like to go and see Matt Smith, you know, get a picture with him and stuff. There's a huge queue, but there's a huge box that you go in,
like
and you don't even see them.
Like
right?
Boxes of what? Girl Scout
like
cookies?
Just like a big like walls.
Oh, like they put them in a box?
Yeah, so it's like a little room that they put him in, and then people queue up outside the room, and then they let them in, and they go to meet. But in the old days,
is he the Pope?
Not only him, every one of them now.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't even get to see them. You don't even get to see them from afar anymore. Right, the lowest end. Yeah,
I used to go to London Film and Comic Con and the surrounding ones. I used to go every year for probably about 10 years. And then I stopped because it just got too greedy. They got too greedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I went, I think the final year I went is when I met Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. And that was great. But for years, I'd been buying what they used to call the gold pass. And the gold pass was something like 200 quid. And basically what it did was it said, right, okay, that gets you as a gold pass member, that gets you to the front of any queue for an autograph or a photo shoot. So you haven't got a queue for ages. And it gets you early access to get into the Comic Con. So it's like, okay, well, that's worth doing it. Then towards the end, they brought in Diamond Pass as well. So on top of Gold Pass, you then had to pay another 200 quid for Diamond Pass for particular people. Yeah, so you would literally, I think they brought it in where they basically locked off certain actors that you wanted a photo shoot with. You couldn't just have the Gold Pass to jump the queue. You had to have the Diamond Pass as well before you'd even get access. And it was just greed. And
they introduced the boxes because of the phones. So if you're wandering around, you could take, so like, for instance, if like that, so you can take a picture, but they don't want you to have that even. Or the last one I went to, right, before phones were very active, the only queues was one for Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds was there, and it was a queue, and it was so long, it was incredible. And for Michael Ironside. So it was the two of them, but everybody else you could access. You could actually, I actually had a half an hour talk with Yepet Koto, who played Parker in, and the villain in James Bond. You know, I actually sat and spoke to him and stuff. Really nice chap. That's what I'm saying. They've taken that away from us now. They've put them in boxes. You can't even take a picture of them anymore because they're in boxes.
That's not the last couple of conventions I went to. They were still sitting at tables, and granted, these were small, but I got to spend some time talking. Like I got to talk to John Romita before that was a few years back. Helen Slater, just
but they're kind of old school, aren't they? The real stars of today. You know, they don't even want you to take a picture with them. They don't want you to.
I don't even have any interest in meeting the stars of today. If I'm being honest.
You know, it's crazy, you know. So that's what I'm saying. It's a very different world today. It's a very different. You know.
When I was doing conventions in the 80s and 90s, sometimes the guests would come into the bar with you, have a chat and a drink.
Yeah.
And now you can't get near them.
Yeah, I mean, but I've also in the last few, and the reason I stopped is because, you know, I think I said to you, Ian, but
too much money.
It was too much money, but it was also I had a bad experience with someone from Buffy the Vampire Slayer that just put me off deciding I just don't want to give people my money again when they're arseholes.
It's like you pay for the entrance to get into it, right? And then you go in there and you think, oh, it's great. You can see everybody in their cosplay stuff, but you can't see any of the stars because they're the big stars because they're all in rooms. And it's like, why did I pay if I can't see any of them?
Do you know the best?
Like, what is this all about? You know?
Do you know the best person I ever met? And I met him at Bournemouth Comic Con a few times and at London Comic Con. Jeremy Bullock, who played Bubba Fett.
Oh yeah,
Fantastic guy. You know.
And Dave Prowse used to do loads of fan events.
Yes,
he did. Yeah,
it was great. And Jeremy Bullock, I walked into Comic Con and he was there in his Boba Fett outfit, and he was there with his wife, and he was just happy to have a conversation with me. I didn't have to give him money. He'd allow me to take photos with him. He was a really top guy, and I was there, like you were saying, and I was talking to him for probably 35 minutes. And he was telling me that he was almost cast in Doctor Who. He was going to be a companion for Pertwee.
Wow.
You know, as Hal the Archer. You know, he was, because they liked him in that story. They thought, you know, this could work if we bring him in as an archer from that period with Sarah and the Third Doctor. I knew nothing about that, and it's like when you talk to them like that, and you learn things, you know. And he was always a nice guy. So whenever you met an arsehole, I always thought of people like Jeremy Bullock, who is sadly missed today, but he was just such a nice, friendly, approachable chap, you know.
Yeah, the only doctor I ever met was Peter Davison when I was working in post production, and we from where we used to work, there used to be this pub just across the road. And he obviously, like, stars used to come in and used to do all the post production. But I remember going to the pub and seeing Peter Davison just sitting there, and I had to talk to him because he was doing something in the post production house that I was working with, and I spoke to him, and he was really nice. He bought me a pint and everything. So you know, and I met Sean Hughes because he was waiting for Sean Hughes because they were making that show. I can't remember what it was called, Something Detective or Young Detective, First Detective, Last Detective, or something like that.
Listen,
so yeah,
The Meeting Detective.
If you really want to spend time with stars, find out which ones have heavy drinking problems, and then just scout out the local bars around the studio.
Well, I've seen was it David Soul when he was alive? I used to see him in every pub down the West End when I used to go down there. Nobody used to speak to him. He's just generally drinking. So yeah, David Soul, he was in every pub that I went to when I was young. So yeah.
I've put more than one pretty famous science fiction actress into a cab in the 90s and early 2000s after leaving the pub. Yeah, well, you know, that's part of my thing too.
Did anyone in this panel meet their crush, their female crush, when they were growing up?
I met Clara from Doctor Who.
She your crush?
I had a photo shoot with her, Jenna Coleman.
Tiny, isn't she?
Yeah, well, I'm not exactly a 6-foot giant, mate. So it was perfect. You know, we were a great match. but she was lovely. And I got my arm around her, and I still think that's an official.
She's
I still think that's an official thing. Yeah,
you're definitely married now.
Exactly.
I met a couple back in the day.
Who's that?
Crushes. I met Vanessa Williams, who is like one of the probably the most beautiful person I've ever met in real life to this day. Like I was such a blithering idiot. God, it still cringes when I think about like that.
She's over here. She's doing the Devil Prada thing on stage.
She sings like an angel. I met a couple. I met a crush from Star Trek and Babylon 5 around that time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's better to look from afar.
It is. It is. What about you, Z? Have you met anyone?
Uncle Owen.
I've met him as well.
Oil baths.
Yeah. No, I mean, meeting the crushes. I mean, I met Louise Jameson. I went up to her store and I got an autograph, and she looked up at me and she said I had a lovely smile.
Nice,
which was great. And again, that's almost a verbal contract that we're in a relationship now. And then the other one was Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica. I met her at Comic-Con, and she when she was going, "Oh, what's your name?" I said John, and she goes, "Are you a big John or a little John?"
Little John. I remember that.
I said, we'll meet up later, and you can figure that one out for yourself.
And that's when she signed and said, "Move along."
Yeah, that's when security stepped in with tasers, and I drooled into the carpet.
The one I met was Carrie Fisher when I was very young. Carrie Fisher, she was in Selfridges.
Oh, that's right. Do you mean meet me, or like if you passed him in the hallway? Because
no,
he was climbing through a window.
I've got a book with all everybody's signatures on it, including George Lucas's one. So she signed what is it? Carrie Fisher in brackets Princess Leia.
Oh wow.
Ian, you're fantastic, or something like that. I can't remember what it was in the book, but if I pull it out, I can tell you if it's somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I was so shy when I met her. I met everyone. The only one I didn't really like, and I really do like his character in Star Wars, was Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford's like, "What's your name?" I said, "Ian." He said, "What should I put?"
Such a miserable.
I know.
When it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah, he's miserable about everything, man. But
he's like, okay, thank you very much. And then I just moved on to Mark Hamill, which was
things.
Hey, Mark Hamill was, hey, how you
want to
doing?
be a Jedi like me?
He's like, did you enjoy the movie? He's like,
I always remember meeting Shatner and and having my photo taken with Shatner. I was always wary because at London Comic Con, because his nickname was Bill the Bastard. you know,
dear.
and he's meant to be horrible. And I was like, oh, really? Is he? And he was, as I went in for the photo shoot, he sat on a stool, you know, because obviously they're rushing people through quickly. But you know, he was quite polite and pleasant when I did it, and when I got an autograph, he was a nice guy. But I have to say, one of the top guys I met, who was a really nice guy, was Christopher Lloyd.
Lloyd,
yeah, really top guy. So, you know, there are arseholes, but there's some really great ones out there as well. But I was going to say, guys, that's it for today. I want to thank all three of you for being on the show tonight. It's been great fun. So thanks for coming on. And you know, we talked about Who at the beginning, and you know, misery loves company. So yeah, glad we went through that together, guys. It's like some sort of meeting, a counselling session. And I also want to say thanks to everyone in the chat. Just to let everyone in the chat know, going forward, there's going to be some more regular live shows. So, you know, I will put out adverts on the channel to keep everyone updated, and on X. So feel free to join us. That'd be great to see you. And we'll also be doing on the channel movie reviews, breaking news videos, and on Sunday nights, we'll be carrying on doing the Stargate SG-1 live watch-alongs. So, you know,
yes.
Nice.
I'm worried that during a 3-hour stream, another country went to war and we don't hear about it until I'm so nervous to wake up every morning and I'm afraid to look at what the hell happened while I was sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've just lost in the gate at this point.
Yeah, breaking news, not as fun as it used to be.
But no, other than that, you know, have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Take care, all.